Huh? Yes, I have that. I got to pass them out. What in the world was that?
Sorry, that was me.
So sorry. Oh, thank you. Okay. Here, why don't you pass those around? We're going to couple things. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome. We'll go ahead and start. It's going to be a little interesting for our last meeting. So, and I just forgot last time we forgot to do the introductions, and somebody kind of said, "Oh, you might want to do another introduction," just to kind of remind everybody in case we have anybody new. So, I'm Leonard McLaren. I'm the coordinator here. Well,
Sharon Harvey, facilitator.
Bam. Introduce yourself. Yes, we are. Don't forget your mics. That has been an ongoing problem.
Hi, I'm Pam Mallon, teacher specialist with the special ed department.
Mary Brandenburg, parent.
My name is Anthony Brandenburg, and I'm a parent.
Parent advocate.
Warren Skidmore, parent.
Jean B. Nuggle, teacher.
Leanne Brown, community member.
Sean Service, community member.
Louise Bell, parent advocate.
Herman Barrero, or German Barrero. I don't speak German. Herman, a parent.
Kathy Hennigan Batista, I'm a special ed teacher at Don Benito.
Carol Higa, program coordinator for special education.
Don Short, parent.
Jim Albanese, principal, Focus Point Academy and PALS.
Ruth Anna All, speech language therapy pathology assistant at Sierra Madre.
Okay, welcome everybody. I know a few people, they already sent some emails. They're going to be a little late, so people come and go. But before we start, I passed the agenda. Pretty much we have two main items that we have to go over because this is our final meeting together. It's really finalizing the goals and as well as finalizing the presentation because of the board. Everything has to be due for the agenda basically on Monday, April 23rd. Fortunately, we can't change anything, so it's going to be a lot of work trying to get everything done. I thought you guys were able to pass the minutes, but then I was informed you guys didn't get a lot of the minutes when I wasn't here at one of the on the March 28th. So we do have a lot of minutes to go over, but not to delay, because I think that's what we have to do with the finalizing and the presentation kind of really puts more precedence. And I don't want to take a lot of the time, so I just want to have a real quick discussion with the group of looking at suggestions where pretty much we can just keep all the minutes as not approved. They're just drafts. And we can go proceed on because this is pretty much still a living document. We'll keep going
I
on.
second that.
We already got a motion.
Aye.
Is everybody okay with that? Or sounds good. Great. Cool. Motion is to leave the minutes as drafts. Please remind me of the dates. I know March 14th. 10th?
I think it's all of them. You're right.
It's all of them since, yeah. So pretty much they'll always be just a living document of being proposed minutes.
But we have to,
yeah, or minutes that will be
for the
proposed.
minutes, we have to be specific about what the motion is. So the motion is to present the following meetings, which ones, Warren? March 10th.
The 14th. 28th. 10th. 14th, yeah.
The 10th or the 14th?
14th. Sorry, that was my fault. And then today, the 18th.
And for
Wouldn't it just be easier to say all the minutes?
No, because we started before March 10th.
Yeah, but there's only one or two.
But we approved those, and
so 2 were approved and 6 weren't.
But we have to be specific about what our motion is. So
isn't saying all the minutes specific?
No,
No.
because
No,
some
it's not.
some have been approved.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion is that all of those minutes be presented as a draft to the board, and then they'll be approved by the task force in future, maybe online meetings, et cetera. Yeah. And what did you say?
No, well, maybe if they're going to, I think they should be posted, but just post them as
Drafts.
draft.
Oh, yeah, they have to
Yeah.
be posted.
And I don't know if they'll ever get approved because it would have to be our body that would have to approve.
I have a good
them, because you'd
idea.
have
Why
another
don't
body
we
coming in.
One person
post
at a
them
time.
as draft?
Well, that's what
Yeah.
we're doing.
Just leave them as drafts and
Yeah,
we'll
that's
go
a good
from there.
idea, Don.
But we do plan to approve them at some future date. We just don't know where. We've all agreed, I think, that the task force is a work in progress, that once we have this final meeting, that's not going to be the end of the organization. We still have to talk about the SMART objectives, et cetera. So that's the motion.
Second.
Monica wants
You have a question?
No.
No,
Go
we
on.
haven't voted yet. We haven't voted yet.
Are you on?
I wanted to say that we have the minutes, and there's also none of the videotaped of the actual events, so that people can't go back and compare and see if they agree with the way they're quoted.
The
In
videos were
general,
on up until
right, so
last Saturday's meeting.
Mhm.
the Saturday before, I didn't see either,
It's all up to date up until.
except for that last Saturday.
Yeah.
So that would then, under the Board Act, Brown Act, which we said we were following, the minutes are always posted as drafts until the time that we have the actual meeting, so that everybody can see it and really look it over and then decide whether or not so it's quickly decided what needs to be changed and what doesn't need to be changed.
But
So
then-
we would just be doing the same thing that they do at all other subcommittee and board meetings.
But the nature of these minutes are discussions about SMART objectives in many ways. And I'm going to guess that a lot of the issues that we discussed in our various task force minutes have or should have become part of SMART objectives. That's
Right.
what's different about
Oh, yes, sir.
these minutes,
Well,
I think.
that's a whole nother one, but that's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need that for people to.
Okay, so that's the motion. Would you? And so now, okay.
Please.
So would
Yeah,
you
please
read the
repeat.
motion then, Sir Secretary?
So it was Jim that shouted first. Jim motioned to table the minutes from the 10th, 14th, 17th and 28th of March and 14th of April and tonight, and all minutes will be presented to the board as draft minutes, and the group will approve them at a future date.
And I second.
Okay.
All in favor? Oh.
I approve.
Okay.
Any people who oppose?
Okay.
Monica is on the record for opposing. Anybody else?
Okay. But pretty much everyone's okay. Okay. Motion carries.
Dates are correct, I can guarantee.
He's taking our minutes, so we're okay. So next, what we have to do. Next, what we.
I don't agree. I'm also opposed. I need to see the video, and it hasn't been. Even if I could stream it right now, which I can't, I would be able to look it over. But until I see what's up,
Well,
I haven't been able to access any of the
Mhm.
Tony, why don't you just address what the issues are with the Brown Act, et cetera, as far as the website, the district's website, and the minutes and the videos?
There's nothing to there's really nothing to address. It's not there, and as long as that's indicated, it's indicated.
But be specific, what's not there?
That the minutes aren't up on the district's webpage, and if I can link from the district webpage.
Tony, pull your mic closer to you, or it's not on.
Yeah, I just can't access it. Even if the minutes were there and I could just click on them and look them over. I'm certain because I've already seen how Warren's notes he's done them in the past, that he's very thorough. But I want to be able to see the information that's up. And the reason that I don't agree, or I'm disappointed that the information's not there, is at least a couple of people I've received emails today who haven't been able to access the information, and without being able to access the docs to add into them, they also can't access the information. So if they've missed meetings, and as I look around the room, I do see there are people here that have missed meetings or part of meetings. They need to be able to access everything and understand what had happened in their absence, so that they can make decisions with us as well.
So do you want a motion that perhaps?
My motion is that it's in, that I just wanted to, that it's indicated that this information's not available. I don't have a Brown Act concern at this time, but I don't want it to be overlooked either. That if any one of us decides that there's a challenge because they haven't been able to access all of the information, I'd say that that's a valid concern.
Well, I do have a Brown Act concern because we're supposed to be operating under the Brown Act bylaws.
And we have to address that we have not followed that. I mean, that needs to be acknowledged.
But we're presenting the paper version drafts to the board. We're not saying that these are,
well, they're things that we sat around and talked about, but I just want to make sure that everybody's been able to access and have input.
Yeah,
Warren.
I don't know much about the Brown Act, but I've been doing the minutes for the most part. Well, hang on a minute. The public's one thing. There's no one here that can't actually ask the other people on the task force for information. And those emails haven't really been going around. If people need information and they're short of it, they can ask. We don't have to provide, I can't think of a better word, but fodder. We don't have to put all the fodder out for everyone. People can ask for it.
But Mike, why don't you talk about the Brown Act?
I said I don't know about the Brown Act, but no one has been asking questions really about.
But it goes outside of this
That's right.
of this boardroom. The Brown Act does.
Tony has the floor.
And because we need to support transparency, and I do believe that what when I enter information into the documents, everybody that has access to these documents can see what I'm saying and where I'm coming from. I've received in the last year, in the last 2 months, from members of the community that I live in through blog spots and opinion pieces that they've said to me outright. Of course, they've done it from the safety of anonymity, but they've said, if you make any decisions, make sure that you and your friends, when you're making decisions, that you remember that you're going to have to get these decisions past us, the community. Well, this is the way to make sure that if there's it's like in a wedding. If there's an objection, the time to make it is when they can access it. If they can see, I've never made a secret where I stand on inclusion or anything else. I've always been very, very upfront on it. But I want to make sure that I'm in the future, I don't have somebody say to me, well, you allowed this to be done in clandestine meetings at the district office. That's what's done to my family. That's not what my family does to other people.
Does everyone understand what the purpose of the Brown Act was?
Yeah.
Okay, the purpose of the Brown Act was to ensure that the public had access. And so, there's been a breakdown in process. And so because of that breakdown, right now we're operating in kind of a fit gap kind of place so that we can make certain that the public will have access to the information. And that is, at this moment, the best that we can do, in addition to going on the record, stating our concern, and using that as a learning to go forward and ensure that there's not so much of a gap between what we do and actual process. So we want to be better. Yes.
And that's all true. But turned me off. But I'd be willing to bet that the PUSD board doesn't operate out of compliance with the Board Act when they have their meetings. And so I think my concern is I can't understand why we can't be in compliance 100% when the board is, whatever the system is for keeping the board in compliance with the Brown Act. I don't know why it's so difficult, why it's so elusive to keep us in compliance when we were told, and that's one of the bedrocks of this special ed task force, and that we've been touting to the community at large, that we are in compliance, that you can readily watch the streaming, that you can immediately have per the Brown Act, because the Brown Act basically says, these are the rules. This is how you operate. So I think those are valid concerns and that they should be noted.
Okay, and I believe they have been. I cannot speak to the operation of the district, but I certainly your concern has been heard, and I don't want us to spend too much time basically going over the same thing, because once we kind of get on that circle, it's hard to get off.
Can I have a final on that, a final comment on that?
Well, actually, I think
after,
yeah.
Okay, so we started talking about the minutes, us as a group agreeing that we're not approving the minutes, that they're being in draft form when they're presented to the Board of Education, right? So we all agree about that, right? That we haven't made a decision about the minutes, right?
Right.
Okay, so where is this going? Other than that, where is this going? I don't understand the point of discussing anything beyond that, because we all agree that it's not, we're agreeing that they're not finalized. We all are in agreement.
Right, but for the record, we just wanted to be noted that we're not in compliance with the Brown Act. That's all. We are in agreement, as you said. This is just very important documentation for our children, actually.
Right, but we all agree that that we're not approving the minutes, that they're being submitted in a draft form, right?
We do.
Okay, so anything, what else, if we all agree, I don't understand what else there is to comment. I mean,
Well, we have one more comment. I'm sorry, Warren. We said that Tony would be last on this.
I can whisper it into your ear, and then you can talk about it. The reason that the reason that streaming this, because we have the technology, streaming this is so important, is because people like the Brandenburgs who have families at home and who do have an active interest and concern can in real time see what's going on. And if there's something that's happening in this room, and sometimes on a Tuesday night, something's happening in this room where I could get into my car and I drive down here and I want to listen to it. I want to be here, and in real time, I want the people that are in this room to know that I care about what's going on and the decisions that are being made in this place. And when I'm at home and this is being streamed, even from a meeting like this, in real time, I can say, you know what, I'm not sure if I agree with that, or you know what, I really think that that's a great thing. And as a member of the community, as you saw us all come in, that's how we ended up here. Let's remember, it wasn't because of the district remembering to make sure that we had gotten the phone call, and I'm not pointing fingers or blaming anyone. What I'm saying is that wires get crossed. But we did not know about this. And we only knew that there was a task force. When we saw what was going on, we got into the car, we drove over, and you were the first person to welcome us and ask us how we found out about it. And it was because we turned on the computer, took a look what was going on, and we went, whoa, that's something that we care about. Let's go down there, let's sit down, and let's listen, and let's try to get a grasp on what's going on in the district.
So who
right
here
now.
doesn't agree with what you're saying? That's my question.
What he's saying is
Does
that.
anybody disagree with what you're saying, that it should be streamed?
No, Donald, I need you to understand what he is saying is that he does.
We lose
We
people.
we're all on the same page with
Right.
regards to the plan for the minutes.
Right.
But there is an aspect of going on the record and actually stating your opinion that's also an important piece. But now that part is done.
Right.
Right. So it's done.
So done.
It's done.
It's a continuity and thought.
Yeah, no, I know that.
And
I
now-
understand, and I agree
now-
with you.
now
I
that
agree
part
with
is
you.
done,
So that's done.
And we can now, we've already
Okay.
made our decision. We've met that particular aspect for the meeting, and
Now it's time. We're going to be reviewing goals. I have to go make copies of all those goals, Warren, that you sent out. So, but you have some stuff you're going to have them work on while I'm getting that all done?
yes, absolutely.
Okay. I'm gonna go get
Okay.
that.
There was a document.
I got copies.
Do you have a number?
I got copies which I gave to Sharon about 25 minutes ago.
Oh, then let me give you.
And I added some goals to them
In the last 25 minutes.
before I came here.
Yeah,
Is
you
it
know,
co-
I'll-
is
Was
it
it,
copies
was it
for everybody?
before 6 o'clock?
What?
Was it before 6 o'clock? Because
After 6 o'clock.
okay, because
But he
You
can,
were
he
actually-
can go in, what he's saying is he has a flash, he can go in there, what I'm talking about, and then give it to you guys to print.
yeah, the reason I'm asking is because he started downloading at about 6:15.
Right, after I told him I had added things, so it's
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
Okay.
He's saying that I did have a copy, but it's not on the legal page.
So are you going to put that on a memory disk so I can print it out?
I'm sure it's the right
Okay.
one.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure it's the right one.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll be printing.
All night.
I got these at 6:15.
Thank you. Okay. One for everyone. Okay. Our next step. Oh, thank you. Were there any extra inclusion philosophy documents from this side? Have they been passed? I gave one. I gave a stack.
Being passed around now.
Come on, everyone. This is what the one thing I definitely walked away from public school with. Take one, pass it down. All righty.
This side is better. This side did as they were told. We had it all done. We had them all over
We want
there.
our gold stars.
You get to line up first.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, here we go. We've got to get down to business because we have a very short amount of time. The conversation on Saturday regarding inclusion. In my email, I shared that I thank you very much because I know that it was a long conversation for many. It was quite possibly one of the most fruitful conversations. It may have been challenging, but nonetheless, we walked away with an understanding that though we had been referring to this as a definition, in fact, it was not a definition. We were referring to a philosophy for Pasadena Unified School District that listed attributes and involvement. So basically, there was a statement that was developed that people could look at, point to, and see themselves in it. So what I'd like for you to do is to take a moment, read the document. Let's let everybody read before we comment.
It isn't here yet.
Yeah. Yes. No. This is identical to the survey that went out.
But I thought we were doing this plus, per Mike's suggestions, we were also coming up with the version that would be used for IEPs, et cetera.
Yes, I have that as well. But I want us to make certain that we approve the statement first.
know where I'm at. It's the aesthetic. So I just think it's wordy, but it's what it is.
That tends to happen when you have a large group working on something. Okay. Is there anyone who's still reading?
Me.
I need us to keep our sidebars to a minimum tonight. Is there anyone who's still reading?
How are we gonna discuss what we do for the meeting if we can't decide?
As soon as we get to that point, at this, no, we're not voting at this moment. I'm asking those who have not had a chance to read it online to read it. Okay. Is there anyone who's still reading? Okay, great. This afternoon, and this was based on the idea from the group on Saturday, I sent out a survey of the same document with the same text, asking those, for those who would not be here, in addition to, you certainly had the opportunity to chime in on the poll if you were going to be here, to let us know whether or not you support, do not support, or choose not to participate in the polling. If you choose not to participate in the polling, I'm asking you to indicate that so that everyone can be accounted for. Okay? So, about the it's an email. It says you support, you do not support, or you choose not to participate. There you go, you can pass that around. Yes, yes, because we knew we weren't going to have 100% attendance or participation.
This came in an email today.
Yeah. Yes, Louise.
The fact that we've left out the Pasadena Unified School District, should it say something like Pasadena Unified School District's inclusion philosophy, something like that?
That's definitely an easy
Sort of ambiguous.
to identify us, I see. Sean? I'm sorry, I need to get a pen.
I agree, and it could be right after where it says the entire educational community of Pasadena Unified School District, students, teachers. Right before the parentheses.
You know what?
Just mentioning the district name. We're not writing a state policy, we're writing a district policy.
Philosophy, not policy.
The way you guys have added in student, teachers, parents, families, school staff, and site administrators, that's so vague. Does it include like the janitors and like?
That's school staff.
Well,
You know,
let's
and-
just make sure we're on the record saying it's
Yeah.
everybody, because
Yeah,
I think
that
it
would
needs to be everybody.
That was actually a point that was made on
Yeah, that's really
Saturday, that making
important.
certain it was as inclusive as possible, but without developing this long list
okay.
of people.
Right.
Because, you know, there were school psychologists that were to be considered and other providers
Gonna
who
do
are
what they wanna
associated
do.
with the district.
Maybe just the word all.
You know, it almost
Sorry.
is, and I have
be
to
quiet.
just,
But hold on, Sean.
yeah,
Sean,
I agree,
go ahead
Sean.
and finish. All?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm cool with all.
What are we saying? You're all done?
I say all's a good
Okay,
one.
I'm sorry. I need you to be specific. The entire educational community
Pasadena Unified,
of Pasadena Unified School District.
and then the word all prior to school staff. It does say and.
Well, see, that's
It
where
says
starts to
and.
get. That's how it's. I need everyone to hold on. That's how it begins to expand, because initially, it started as a small list of who were the stakeholders, and then it contracted to education community, and then it expanded to. So you need to. We need to get out of the accordion state and actually figure what is a word or two that best represents the community that we're trying to identify.
In that sentence, all would be grammatically correct for staff and site administrators. So we would be cool with all. It's grammatically okay. It says site administrators.
It's not district.
Oh, district, man.
Tony.
Oh, then
The entire educational community is fine. If we alter it too much from there, we go too much from there, then if somebody's left out, there's two ways that this goes. Either somebody's feelings are hurt, right? Oh, we're not included in this statement. We've been left out. Or on the other side of that is, well, we're not indicated in this, so we're not held accountable by it. And it's not an accountability thing. I understand that, but it's
the representation.
Right, and we don't need all the specs. It's like it's
Well,
all.
I am absolutely, I'm going to step outside of my facilitator role for just a moment, so just physically note this is me. Facilitator is over there. My thought, and you can prescribe it. It is as a person reading the document, and I've spent a lot of time with the document over the course of the last 3 days, and looking at other documents as well. The entire education community seems to capture everyone. And it seems to be a fairly common use in order to capture everyone. That covers, the volunteer, that covers teachers, it covers staff, it covers family, it covers parents, it covers contractors, it covers the gamut.
You're right.
So are we,
Who cross into
are
this
we
place,
saying
right.
we're okay if I change this to the entire education community? Okay.
Well, I think it should be the entire Pasadena Unified School District educational community. I think Pasadena Unified School District should come first.
I'm fine. The group, that's one of those things that we're saying the same thing, we're just putting it in a different place. Are we okay with that?
In the title.
In the title too, and we need to date this thing too.
Well, mind you, this is just for us. This is just for us because I anticipated at least 1 or 2 changes. So the final, we can redo the survey in order to make certain that it's documented, the level of support for the statement. It will take me about 30 minutes to redo it and send it out.
But I think we need a date on it because the philosophy will change over time. So as
Absolutely.
of this particular date, this is what the philosophy was. I drive my kids crazy with putting a date on their homework all the time.
She's gonna just take.
was the
Okay.
decision then made to take out the things in the parentheses? Is that what you were saying?
Yes.
Okay, excellent idea.
And so I'm going to add the school district, and also the date will appear as part of the document.
Pasadena Unified School District?
Yes.
Or no? Yes.
Yes.
In the title and in the text.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm writing it just as a reminder to myself, title.
That's the only difference, right?
That's it.
Clarifying question.
We have a question?
So by adding PUSD, I'm fine. I agree. We should identify PUSD, but this
Sidebars.
this philosophy was written with the school sites in mind. So I don't know whether.
Well, by stating education community, the school sites are.
No, what I'm saying is by making how we word Pasadena Unified School District, whatever, does that take the emphasis away from the school sites?
No, it's
of each individual school site.
The
I mean,
district is the umbrella
Yeah.
under which all sites fall, I think.
Operate. Okay. Is that, okay. All right. So, from the group, please, do we want to simply, that's my question, do we want to simply vote on this now with those that are here, or do we feel the need to redo the survey? Okay, let's vote on it now. I need a motion.
I move that we accept the inclusion philosophy as stated with the correction that was made, or with the addition, or the removal of the things in parentheses.
Yes, thank you.
But we didn't vote.
Okay,
We didn't
all
vote.
in favor?
You did a lot of clapping, but we didn't vote yet.
Oh,
Aye.
that's right, you guys didn't. I'm sorry, I was
You're out the
dancing.
door with the prize, and we haven't even given it out.
Again, all in, if we can see, all in favor.
Did everybody vote?
Yeah. We got to stop
there-
talking for
are
1
there any
second because
nays?
we have a vote going on.
Okay, she's already voted.
Are there nays?
I also want to, I also want to thank you for embracing the use of electronic communication as we worked on this. I know that it's challenging. The goal was simply to find a way to allow people to continue to be at home with their family, even though they were working on things. And so thank you for giving it a try. And for most people, it was a successful endeavor. For some, there were some challenges. But thank you again for at least making a go of it. All righty. Here's our next part related to inclusion. This document is longer. If you recall, there was a description about creating a framework. In fact, Mike, why don't I have you to describe?
Sure. So we had the inclusion philosophy, but there was concern that that inclusion does not represent the entire continuum of services in every student in terms of the best placement, perhaps. So we wanted, and we also wanted to have some legality aspect to this so that when people let me take a step back. Inclusion philosophy was a really easy catch-all paragraph that people could understand and embrace and get universal buy-in regardless of whether you walk in the special education world or not. But we felt that we needed something a little bit more stronger, to protect all students and base it, the fact that this is based on IDEA and federal law and that a continuum of services is needed and response to intervention in least restrictive environment. So we talked about having a statement of intent so that nobody could take this inclusion philosophy and spin
Is
it
the
to...
document being passed around?
Well, we're trying to understand the pages because
There's, page 1's missing on,
No, there's actually, it's double-sided.
I know, well, see, look at this.
all are not double-sided.
See this one?
I'm sorry, these are the originals.
This is, see how it's got draft 1?
Yeah.
And then you have, see that draft 2?
And I was trying, I don't know what's
Let me
what.
these are the originals. Here you go.
Okay.
Double-sided. Thank you, German. Okay.
Okay.
So what you are seeing
went
when you
that
receive this document, you'll see at the very top a statement of intent. And a statement of intent was written to make sure that all students were protected, all families and advocates were protected with regards to going into an IEP or any sort of special education forum. The second part is the inclusion philosophy, which is what we just approved, a really easy removable paragraph that explains this and hopefully gets universal buy-in from everybody at a school site. The last part, the NEA policy statement on appropriate inclusion, was added so that we could make sure we could get as much buy-in as possible, and by aligning the NEA policy statement on appropriate inclusion basically says that the teachers union by which UTP is a part of, they are in favor of inclusion, and they define inclusion, a successful inclusion environment to consist of these 5 or 6 criteria. So it's basically to say that that last part, that teachers are on board with this, and it also lets the Board of Education and anybody else know that as long as we follow these steps, we will have what we believe to be an acceptable and successful inclusion environment that everybody will be on board with.
It is important to note that the last section, and I'm certain Mike said it, but I just want to reiterate it, the NEA policy statement on appropriate inclusion is their actual policy statement. So when you look at the bottom, you'll see when it was adopted and the copyright information.
So like when Tony was saying last week that when we have the SMART goals and we sort of interweave them with the
existing and approved.
With existing and approved documentation, it reinforces everything. So the fact that this is already on record by the union, we felt that that would strengthen the whole document as a whole, and the policy and the philosophy as a whole.
Yes. I'm sorry, before Louise, I want to say that the top portion, the statement of intent, at this moment in time, this can be discussed, but only briefly, and then any recommendations or suggestions, I would ask that you just please send them to me via email, because the most important piece is the inclusion philosophy. That is the most important piece of this document at this moment. And of course, we won't touch the NEA policy statement. Louise.
The inclusion philosophy is being submitted to the board, right?
Yes.
And this document is too, right?
Yes, but we definitely got to get some feedback from the group before.
Because I was going to ask if we could have 3 minutes, 5 minutes to read it.
I was actually going to give you about 10.
Oh, okay.
I'm generous.
I'm sorry, I just have, Mike, I'm sorry, when you started to review the page. Oh, sorry, Mike, when you started to review the page, and you read the NEA policy statement, did you say this was the NEA policy statement, or did you say it was the UTP policy statement?
I said it was the NEA policy statement, but my understanding is that the UTP is associated or part of the NEA.
Okay, so I just want to make sure, since I'm the chief negotiator, I just want to make sure that we haven't said something for a union that's not here, and usually I have a bargaining member here, but she happens to not be here tonight.
I'm an officer of UTP.
Okay, okay. So did UTP approve this?
Yes.
They did?
Yes, we're part of the NEA, and that's our statement as well.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
In fact, the preliminary conversation took place over I believe it was at Saturday's meeting. Kathy.
I have two questions then. Would it be appropriate to put NEA/UTP policy statement on that?
We cannot put UTP on there. We can put that the UTP agrees with it because we are an affiliate organization, but it is the NEA policy statement and it's copyright. So,
Okay, so if we could go consistent with the practice, I think that would really send a strong message to the members. So,
Okay,
that would
and
be
how
nice.
would we like to say that?
I think UTP should come to that conclusion according to what is normal process.
Tony.
What it could say is underneath it, the NEA is the parent organization in which the CTA and UTP
Tony,
belong.
is your mic on? I'm
No.
sorry.
Yeah, too far
And
away.
again, nor can I speak for on behalf of either any of these three groups, because I'm not a member of any of them. However, if we clarify underneath, the NEA is the parent organization of the CTA and the UTP, then all this is doing is it's just stating what the official NEA policy is on inclusion. It is on the back. It is cited with the copyright. So there shouldn't be a question there. But I don't know.
You know, if I could, Carol, I was going to ask if got caught. If you, as a representative, could just provide me with a brief statement.
yes, as a matter of fact, I already spoke at the e-board meeting about the fact that this had been included in the statement of inclusion, and the e-board has already said that they are very pleased that it's in there and they have no problem with it. So it's just the wording I will
Okay.
take back to them, but
Wonderful. Success.
I wasn't done. I had another question. I haven't seen this or heard it discussed, but oftentimes the idea of inclusion is part of it is the assumption that kids will go to their neighborhood school. And I don't think that belongs in the philosophy statement. But I'm wondering, as we're working through this, are we assuming that we're supporting the children going to their neighborhood school?
We have, first of all, time check. We have about 5 minutes to go. And also, there is a paragraph, and I know that you haven't had time to read it thoroughly because we are moving fairly quickly. But there is an area in the statement of intent that actually references that. And Mike, you're right next to Kathy. You want to point it out?
For everybody's reference, it's a it's a paragraph that starts given the distinction, and it's the second line.
Okay, teacher.
Where are you?
Nearest geographical proximity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, specifically, it says, given this distinction, a service, not a place, it is the intent of the Pasadena Unified School District that all students served by special education should attend the school in the nearest geographical proximity to that student's residence.
Yes, yes. I absolutely, I struggled with this. I want you to know it took me about 4 hours to write it, and then it took Mike about 3 minutes to put a big old X through it. But he was kind. He used a felt tip marker. But I want to thank him because, you know, it's, as members of the task force, everyone comes with just, you know, great passion and commitment to what the task force is trying to do. So what I really wanted to do was just create kind of a tone and a framework. And then I want to thank Mr. Costello for really giving it that extra oomph that it needed. So thank you, thank you, thank you. All righty.
So
I
can
would
we
like
read
to
now?
Yes.
address the fact that basically, I don't know how many of our schools are neighborhood schools, but currently, I would say a majority of the elementary schools are not neighborhood schools. There are children at the elementary schools in this district who are either bused in or brought there by choice by their parents. So again, as I said, I don't know how many are actually neighborhood schools, but I would say a majority are not.
Thank you, Monica.
The only other problem I see also is that Altadena doesn't have an elementary school, and they're all going to be up in arms about this. I mean, you've seen people at board meetings, you're going to see a lot of people. And especially when it goes to picking which middle school, everybody wants theirs to, you know what I mean, doing it. It's the same with high school.
Is it possible that?
So we really we should get this out to the neighborhood leaders. I just think because they might feel like they were gypped in input. You know what I mean?
Well, my question was going to be, is it possible that the phrase nearest geographical proximity would support that?
I never knew how they decided in the end how they were going to cover this particular issue that there's no elementary school, but it's left a very bitter pill in the community whenever they hear about people picking things because they feel like, well, I don't live there anymore, but, you know, they feel like they get, like, the crumbs of, you know, Pasadena.
Here's a question. Would it be helpful for one of us to read this out loud to make certain we've at least read it openly? Okay.
But I have a question. Isn't Altadena Elementary in Altadena?
Yeah.
Yes, and
Yeah. Yeah.
Jackson, yeah. Fine.
Okay, I'm now going to
Pasadena
read
is big,
the inclusion
place.
philosophy. The proposed, this is draft 2, Pasadena Unified School District Inclusion Philosophy, beginning with the statement of intent. Special education is a service, not a place. It is a body of services employed to help students who meet a qualifying condition or conditions according to the Individual with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, a law ensuring services to children with disabilities throughout the nation receive the highest quality education. IDEA governs how states and public agencies provide early intervention, special education, and related services to more than 6.5 million eligible infants, toddlers, children, and youth with disabilities. Special education is not a place where students are sent to receive these services. Given this distinction, a service, not a place, it is the intent of the Pasadena Unified School District that all students served by special education should attend the school in the nearest geographical proximity to that student's residence. Within that school environment, each student served by special education should have access to a full continuum of services and be able to receive the service or services necessary for him or her to access the curriculum at his or her highest level. Per IDEA, least restrictive environment is defined as, to the maximum extent appropriate, children with disabilities, including children in public or private institutions or other care facilities, are educated with children who are not disabled, and special classes, separate schooling, or other removal of children with disabilities from the regular educational environment occurs only when the nature or severity of the disability of a child is such that education in regular classes with the use of supplementary aids and services cannot be achieved satisfactorily. In becoming more inclusive, schools will meet a greater diversity of needs. Some students will have special educational needs, but others, the gifted child or one for whom English is a second language, may experience different barriers to learning that may be as significant as those for the child with a learning difficulty or disability. It is helpful, therefore, to describe these students as having additional needs, and the challenge for inclusive schools is to meet the needs of all the children and young people they teach. Inclusive education seeks to adapt cultures, structures, and systems to meet needs, and fully involves the child or young person with additional needs in the process. Adaptations to the school curriculum, to buildings, to attitudes and values, to language, images, and role models are some of the changes required if movement to real inclusion is to be achieved. This statement presents an exciting and challenging vision for inclusive practices in all aspects of how education is provided in Pasadena Unified School District. Every student should achieve at the highest level, and the PUSD Board of Education believes that all students achieve their best when they learn together. The Board of Education is committed to making the PUSD inclusion philosophy a reality in all school sites throughout the district. And then, of course, we've already talked about the inclusion philosophy and the policy statement.
I think we should celebrate that. But
Two hands. We have Louise and Monica.
I think this should be dated too, but I also noticed that Jim's students aren't necessarily all addressed here. I see eligible infants in the first paragraph, eligible infants, toddlers, children, and youth, but some of the people served are able to be, 21, 22? And that same omission is made in the paragraph, let's see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the sixth paragraph, which begins inclusive education.
Mhm.
Again, it talks about involves the child or young person. So I think language needs to be there to capture individuals who are, young adults. Those were my only observations.
Okay. I'm sorry, Monica.
Also, I wanted to mention that, I don't know if Mike knows, there had been an inclusion task force before, following an audit that tried exactly what you guys are talking about trying, doing a certain number of schools and then going on to, so just be cognizant of maybe what failed. I think I might have some notes on what kind of was the difficulties they found, why they didn't finish doing it, and I could get that for you if that would be helpful. Because there was a bunch of notes, they really met in earnest trying to implement that same concept.
For sure.
Certainly. We want to learn from what others have done. Louise.
I was just going to say, I'll talk to Mike about this, but if we're looking at certain schools, we're looking at elementary and middle
And
and
high
high? Okay.
Every school site.
Okay.
If I may, I wanted to, because the reference was made to making certain that the students at the facility where Jim Albanese is principal is captured, what would be the appropriate wording for your student population?
My students are students. I have adult students, and I have students who are minors. So I think that looking at Pam's students, if we say all students, that would cover all students. But it's students with IEPs. Yeah.
Okay. So the reference to infants, toddlers, well, mind you.
I will tell you, if we're doing it to be inclusive of a population, that's one goal. If it's from a protection standpoint, my students are protected. You know, they have the body of law to protect them. And because they're adults, they aren't included on a comprehensive campus. And so one way to look at it might be, and I'll just throw this out for people to think through, is that because my students are in a program, not at a school, they're in a transition program, that they've already benefited from inclusive programs on comprehensive campuses and are now participating in a program as adult students with IEPs. And so that way, we can recognize what they do and who they are and celebrate that, but they don't need to be on a comprehensive campus because they're adults.
But there's no inclusion involved in anything you do?
They're already included because they're in the community
They're in the
acting as
community.
adults.
What they're doing is going out to job sites. What they're doing is getting going to the DMV.
So they're being included.
So
One person
Right.
at a time.
So then I don't think we should, I don't think the language should stop with language that excludes them. I don't know what we want to do, I understand they're not excluded.
And my students
Right.
are both grateful to you for remembering them. If we could add, and I don't know where to do it, maybe just the signifier of adult students.
It could be and adult students with IEPs.
Young adult students with IEPs works for me too.
Just to sorry, in order for me to make copies of everything, I need a member from every student, every school, just a rep from that group, and as well as a group from the collaboration and curriculum, because I've actually have 2 copies. I'm not sure which one's which, and they're actually quite large documents, so I don't want to make this many copies of the wrong copy where we're wasting a lot of paper. So I just need one member from each of those groups real quick. Thanks.
I'll join you, but there was a request by one of the members to add the word federal after IDEA.
I'm sorry,
a federal.
Mike, I need you to.
There was a request that we add the word federal after IDEA. So on the second paragraph, it is a body of services. The second line, in parentheses, IDEA, comma. Right now it says a law ensuring.
Okay.
But if we want to add a
federal
federal
law.
law, yes.
Is that a proper noun?
At the end of that paragraph, back to our young adults, eligible infants, toddlers, children, youth, and young adults with disabilities. Can't we just add that? Wouldn't that work to, we remove the N before youth, put a comma, and then after youth, put and young,
Hold on. Go on, Sean.
and young adults with disabilities.
Okay.
What's the difference between a youth and a child?
Youth is like a teenager.
Oh, okay.
Got it. Okay. If we can move down to the second occurrence of the phrase young person, 1, 2, 3, it's the paragraph that begins inclusive education, seeks to adapt culture, structures, and systems to meet needs and fully involves a child or young person. Is there a change needed there?
Say that again, sorry.
the child or person with disabilities.
Where are we? Sorry.
We're in the paragraph with inclusive.
The end of that line.
Could you just say student?
I'm sorry, I still don't know.
I'm
where it
coming
is.
to the group. You tell me what you want me to say.
I'm sorry, I still don't know where we are.
I think.
I'm sorry. If you count the first line, special education as a service counts as paragraph 1. We're down at paragraph 6. The last 3 words at the end of the first line.
Sharon, so I think this is Herman. So involves the child or young instead of person, just young adults.
No, because you have teenagers too. You could do. Right.
Can we say student?
But the previous paragraph mentions the gifted child, EL kids, people that are experiencing different barriers. And so this is building upon that. And if we replace people with additional needs to be included, and then now just not include the non-disabled, I guess in this case.
Yeah. Could we just say student?
Involves.
I'm just looking out into the world.
Are we okay with student?
Yeah.
Thank you, Leanne.
Okay. Involves the student. All righty. Okay. Is there a vote needed on this?
I motion that let's see, draft 2 of the Pasadena Unified School District inclusion draft. I did say that I thought we needed to put a date on here too,
Yes,
though.
you did.
So with a date and the changes made to the document be approved.
Now, can I just do one additional before? Just want to bring one thing to the group's attention. In the second paragraph, it's the body of services, that paragraph. It says, receive the highest quality education. Isn't it really that we're looking at equity in quality of education? Because somebody may determine that they're already, I don't know if that word is really what we're looking at.
Where are you, Sean?
In the first the first paragraph, after is not a place, it says, law ensuring services to children with disabilities throughout the nation receive the highest quality education. I agree with that, but I think that the main point really is a equitable quality education.
You're right. That's what the law ensures. It doesn't ensure the highest quality of education. It
Right.
ensures an equitable.
Right, because that's the point of inclusion. It's equitable amongst groups. So would it be an equitable quality education?
Except for, I missed your introductory part, so forgive me for coming in halfway. But for many stakeholders, equity is not the best term because it's not about equal. Like, we don't all need glasses, so we don't all need to have a pair of glasses. But if you need glasses to see, you need glasses, so you should have access to glasses. But I don't need. Well, I do, but I don't need glasses. So
One person shouldn't get steel rimmed and another person get gold rimmed,
But that is actually.
even though gold rimmed might be the
In
highest
a
quality.
way, in a way, we may be parsing hairs here because that's the difference between equity and equal. Equal is you get glasses, we all get the same glasses. Equitable is
What
we
you
all
need.
need glasses, but I need a different prescription and it may cost more. And Sean may be at a point where he no longer needs glasses, but there's a different service that he may need now. So he has access to whatever that is at this time. So
Highest is
equal
students
and
seem-
equity, not the same.
Right, and I didn't think that highest seemed to capture either of those.
Jim, then Mike.
What we say at my school is fair isn't everybody getting the same thing. Fair is everybody getting what they need.
Right.
And I've started to say at home, and my kids don't like it any more than my students.
Mike.
As Kathy mentioned, there's a difference between what the law states and what we're not bound to, we have to maintain a minimum of what the law says, but there's no reason why we can't shoot for a higher standard as well, so.
Can I say something? Maybe instead of saying the highest quality, because then that means it's the highest, we could say a high quality education. So it's more, we're striving for a high quality education, but it's not the highest.
Louise, then Sean.
I think appropriate could go in here someplace. The word appropriate, receive the highest appropriate education or whatever you supplant highest with, but I think appropriate, because the appropriate for people who have an IEP, appropriate would be based upon their IEP, right?
Sean?
Again, when we're looking at special education placement versus inclusion philosophy, the idea in inclusion is that people are getting similar programming and in the same place, as there is not a distinction amongst kids, even though a child may need different levels of remediation in one area or another. And still kind of holding to that idea that equitable means that they are getting what the regular ed kids would get if they needed help. And I think that's kind of where we're at in moving things from a placement of special ed to inclusion, is that people are able to access the same things in an equitable fashion.
Monica?
That was the way we wrote most of our goals, was that how would you go about doing such a thing, from very early on, where the kids start off being included, and after all, you've tried everything possible, then slowly have to segregate them or reduce to whatever their least restrictive environment is. Don't start off restricting them and then trying to get them to earn their way back into the, regular population. We want it the other way around. They're included, and then in the event that they can't be, there's no accommodations, modifications, or service delivery models of the work or anything that can make it where they can survive, then they go to the exclusive program, the more restrictive program. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but we're still working on how we work that into that particular sentence.
Oh, well, it can't go on there.
Is there a way for it? Is the word equitable? We're just trying to wrap it up, because once I send it out, I'm hoping not to send out a draft. Okay?
Sharon?
Yes.
What about standards-based education that we know is covered, everything's covered?
Okay, use your mic. Use your mic.
Would you consider a standards-based education, which covers everything, because we have to cover all the standards?
That's right.
Ruth, standards-based education?
Say that again. What was that? I didn't get the first
Or
word.
are we supposed to use core curriculum now?
Yes.
What was the first word?
Okay, I need you to finish the thought for us.
Okay,
so that the
I
group
think
can
the
hear.
new term is going to be core curriculum.
Yes.
There's actually goals written like that in ours.
Okay, again, how does that fit in the sentence? I need the sentence.
Receive a core curriculum education, or
Then you don't have to buy special books.
Kathy?
My reservation about this sentence is it says, a law ensuring services to the children with disabilities throughout the nation receive. And I think if you're quoting the law, you have to use the vocabulary of the law.
Right. Or at least a legal reference.
Yeah, or equitable. Yeah. Or least restrictive.
Okay, then do we go with the word appropriate? It would state, a law ensuring services to children with disabilities throughout the nation receive the highest appropriate education?
I
Or the
don't
highest
think
education
highest.
appropriate.
Highest is not appropriate there. The law
Okay.
does not call for highest. It
Okay, I
calls
need an
for
idea, Judy.
appropriate.
It's appropriate.
Sharon,
Yeah.
or because we're Pasadena, we could go above the law.
Well, the law is just the minimum.
I agree with the idea of making it
I don't mind.
reflect the law. So why don't we just
I
delete
am
those
a
4
fullback.
words, or the 5 words, receive the highest quality education. So it would be a law ensuring services to children with disabilities throughout the nation.
That's different.
No.
Okay, it doesn't get to the idea of both sides, general ed, special ed, are going to be getting a equitable education. I'm sorry that I'm repeating myself, but I'm not exactly sure what the problem is with that word.
Here's an idea. Here's an idea. A law ensuring services to children with disabilities throughout the nation receive an equitable education, period.
I have a comment. The idea, IDEA, the federal law identifies IDEA. So we could have IDEA, which, comma, is the law ensuring services to disabilities throughout the nation, period. And then start with whatever we want our philosophy to say. That's the defining thing, is IDEA is the federal law, and that explains in that sentence. But then we can period after nation. PUSD students receive an core curriculum appropriate, equitable, fill in the blank. I'll defer to somebody else who's
Didn't we already vote?
more knowledgeable than I.
Okay.
No, we haven't voted.
For simplicity,
Darn.
and so that we can move on. On the table we have, and everyone who has an idea, who has already spoken forward, I need you to write down what you had said so that everyone can hear it, and then we can decide. A federal law ensuring, the idea came from here, a federal law ensuring educational services to children with disabilities throughout the nation receive an equitable education. That was one. Ruth Ann.
My suggestion was that IDEA, comma, is the federal law that ensures services to children with disabilities throughout the nation, period. Pasadena students receive, fill in the blank, a core curriculum, standards-based, equitable, high-quality education.
Sharon, I don't mean to be the academician here, but I want to bring something up. Do we realize why the sentence is in there?
Yeah.
Okay, why? Somebody tell me, because it's in regard to a specific case law that it's in there. It's the Marshall case. And the Marshall case indicated that special education was a dead end, was that once somebody got into special education, that was it. There was no coming out of it with good quality ed. Now, it was determined that that was not correct in the Marshall case, and that's why this equitable high quality or equitable quality of education exists. It's specifically in regards to the Marshall case. So I'm not just putting out a word to put it out. That's what it comes from.
Well, I think it keeps us, we have to stay with the spirit of the purpose for it. So I've got Louise, then Tony.
I was just going to suggest that it read after IDEA, comma, a federal law ensuring services to children with disabilities throughout the nation receive an equitable and appropriate quality education.
Works for me because appropriate in our language means individualized.
Individualized.
Okay. Tony?
I think that the word quality, because we can't really measure that, and we can't really measure highest either, that we keep that as an ideal, but we move it, maybe not here. Look at this as a law ensuring services to children with disabilities throughout the nation, in a law in which students with children with disabilities throughout the nation are provided access to an equitable education. Cutting out highest, cutting out quality. It is access to an equitable education.
Actually, the word should not be equitable there. I don't believe it should be a free, appropriate public education, which is a FAPE, which is high quality, free, appropriate public education.
Okay, here's the challenge.
That's right, and it is in IDEA, so that it is supported by that statement. You're right.
That's right.
For
Here's a question. Unless we can resolve this in like the next 2 minutes, you're all going to be surprised by what I actually put in the document. And then you'll get to send me full sentences of what your recommendations are. Because we can't put recommendations forward that are blah, 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 fill in the blank, etc. We need to actually come to some consensus, keeping in mind why that statement was originally there.
I think with putting equitable and appropriate, we kind of get the FAPE part in there, and then we get the martial law part in there also. So I agree with Louise in looking at equitable. Access is the main idea here. So equitable access and appropriate access. So equitable and appropriate.
Equitable and appropriate access, period, or equitable and appropriate access to education.
You got to add to education.
Okay.
And
I believe we may have it, Mike, and then I'm going to go ahead and read it as it is.
2 questions. One, is there a reason not to include, to Judy's point, is there a reason not to include the word free and appropriate? That's my first question. And then my second question is, my concern with access to, provides access to, doesn't mean that they actually get, I would rather use the term receive, because then there is the actual fulfillment, as opposed to the word access.
I have a similar concern because of the fact that if we take, because if we're talking about when we do inclusion, that they're going to have access to the regular education curriculum, then it, by default, that'll be the curriculum that everyone else has, that we're supposed to find a way where they can access, that the kids can access it. That'd be the best way to think about it. So once you start naming certain groups, certain things, certain words like free, appropriate public education, and specifically FAPE, that goes along with people who just have IEPs. And we were covering everybody, the 504s, you know what I mean? We were trying to cover all students. We weren't trying to exclude anybody. So I'm just worried about us trying to make it just for some people, because then it looks like you're excluding other groups of people.
That is a reasonable concern. Okay, here's what I have. And ironically, this is something that we've already said. A federal law ensuring services to children with disabilities throughout the nation receive an equitable and appropriate education, or receive equitable and appropriate access to education. Those are the 2 options.
No, I agree with Mike. With putting access in, there's a likelihood that it may not. It doesn't have to happen, but with receiving,
we're going with the affirmative.
Right. With
receive.
Do we need to put a federal law ensuring educational services or just services?
Well, it is intent, right? It is our intent. We're saying this is the intent. I mean, so just to receive, you're right. I think that receive is
okay, but that my second question was about the ensuring services. Do we just need to put the word education in? Or do we not need to put it in? They're not educational services?
Yeah.
Are there other services beyond educational services that a school district's going to do in a school? That's educational.
Well, okay, here's the thing.
Okay.
We add educational, it simply reinforces our purpose and our intent. So.
Now I got 3 words in the document.
All righty. Here is a statement as it stands. A federal law ensuring educational services to children with disabilities throughout the nation receive an equitable and appropriate education, period. All right.
So we eliminated quality, okay.
Is there a motion?
Second.
I motion that
we need a motion first, Tony.
I motion that we approve the Draft 2 Pasadena Unified School District Inclusion Philosophy.
Equitable. Okay, wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. All right, here's the thing. It is 10 minutes to 8. Oh, I keep forgetting you guys have to vote.
This is like either an anarchy or a, I'm not sure what this is.
It's,
should be a theocracy. Trust me, we need the Lord.
That too. All righty. The motion has already been put forth. We had a second. All in favor? Aye. Any nays? Any okay, we have one. Any abstentions? Excellent. All right, it's break time. 10 minutes. I need you back at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock sharp. 8 o'clock sharp.
Due to the great recommendations for the positive school-wide behavior plans, I brought a school-wide behavior plan that I wrote after Herman sent me the information in 2006, if you want to see it. And I also brought the RTI behavior notebook, if you'd like to see that. Exactly. So during the break or afterwards, if anyone would like to browse through, please feel welcome to do that.
Okay. Break, break. I need you back at 8 o'clock. Okay, so the document going around now is every student, every school. There were no significant changes made since the information was presented on Saturday. Are there any questions for the Every Student, Every School subcommittee? And I do mean we're going to move through this.
Let me just.
So speak now.
Where are the documents?
They're
It's coming out now.
All right.
Let me just clarify. What you're going to see is a document in transition. Nothing has really been changed or added from the goals perspective. We were just moving it. We had used an earlier template, and it didn't have the column resources required. So we were just cutting and pasting it into this new document, but we haven't finished making that stuff.
Okay. I do want to state to everyone that, okay, I'm volunteering myself literally for the grunt work for the weekend. So I'm giving every subcommittee until Saturday at 12 noon. Saturday at 12 noon. Formatting changes, any last minute edits, last minute additions, want to research one last item. Every subcommittee will have until Saturday at 12 noon. When is the board meeting? Monday. I'm sorry, the board meeting itself is May 8th. The documents are going to be due. They have to be compiled. They have to be consolidated. The entire packet has to be submitted in advance so that the appropriate processes can be followed here in preparation for the meeting. And that's as per board bylaws. Yeah.
My understanding is that they need it 5 days before the board meeting.
We'll have to clarify that with Leonard. I'm not a member of PUSD. I'm only doing what I was told. Okay. Was there another hand?
That's how we did it.
Was there another hand? Kathy?
At current time, I only have access to the professional development goals. I'd like to see all the goals.
Okay, you'll need to just send me an email. Okay. Yes. Now, here's a challenge. Some people have changed email addresses during this process. Made me a little crazy. Yes, and unfortunately, Herman, we've just decided that you're just going to be blocked altogether.
That's why he changed his name to German.
Basically what occurred was your email address wasn't recognized, and so it was temporarily blocked. So I'm going to go in and, but it wasn't me.
I did get access, but then I got blocked by someone. Anyways, someone. I'm not going to reveal who it was.
Yes.
That's okay, because I've created a website. www. No, I'm kidding. We're going to do a minority report.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments related to the instructions that I provided? And again, when Leonard comes in the room, we'll ask for clarification about the document submission dates. Louise.
Would you just give a real quick overview on how Google Docs works and access to it? Because I think there's a population of people who may not fully feel technologically comfortable with doing what has to be done to gain access to the documents.
Sure.
Let's not do that here. I'll do it after the meeting, because otherwise it's not an efficient use of time.
Well, okay,
Have a
but there are
volunteer.
people who are saying they still haven't been able to get
Okay,
in because they don't know how to.
anyone that's stuck, I'll show it after the meeting.
Okay. And then Warren, if there's anyone, just send me their names.
Okay.
Thank you. I mean, that way, because as the owner of the document, I can open it up for them.
For instance, I'm working on 3 or 4 different Google Docs for different agencies, and I could see them all, you know, when you log in with your name, so.
Yes.
you could get-
Okay, so after the meeting, Warren will meet with the training subcommittee and provide information for anyone who is in need of assistance or support. Okay, any other information, any other questions regarding the process as I described it? That would be no. Every student, every school has shared, they're in the middle of just formatting and making some basically formatting changes, no changes to content, etc.
But we will, I mean, there are lots of, not lots, but there are several suggestions that will be added to this. But since Saturday, there's no.
Okay, thank you. Luis?
A challenge I think I have, though, is that since everybody does have access, people actually do go into subcommittee documents and change them, which is part of, I guess, this whole process. But the problem is, at some point, subcommittee, you can only reread this stuff so many times.
Sure.
So I almost feel like we need to agree upon when we're going to stop changing documents.
No. Saturday at
No.
12 noon would be too late.
Right.
Because they need the opportunity to proof and to make, and to format, etc. Today is Wednesday. Would everyone agree that if you're going to go in and make any changes to anyone else's documents, I'm just going to say a time. Okay. Hold on a moment. Okay. In order to give the subcommittee leader, who is the person who really is going to have the final responsibility for sending it to me, I would think that Friday morning would be the last time, so that you can have Friday to look at it. Also, as a courtesy, if you're going to enter information, one, do not delete anything that anyone has entered. Do not delete anything. The purpose for the use of Google Docs is for collaboration, for being aware of what other subcommittees are doing, not to remove. In the event there's something that you believe should not be there, use a different color, red, blue, green, and make a statement. Or maybe you want to revise a statement, but do not delete information from anyone's document. Monica?
I personally have had my goals deleted all the way back to the goal.
I'm sorry.
And then people like go in and write and say it's something else that it was meant. And sometimes it was the bad people in our group like him. But sometimes I didn't know how. You know, how it happened, and it was just, but isn't there a way we can do like a notes section maybe where people can write notes of, like, just like you would with community members that come to a board meeting?
Basic Google etiquette, you don't delete anyone else's work.
Right, but
you
that's what's
simply
going
add
on.
to it, use a different font color, blue, green, red, whatever, so that they can see that it's different. But do not delete the text from anyone's document.
What's this?
Well, somebody admitted deletion, but there was something that I think was deleted that I posted. Does anyone else want to admit that they deleted?
It's okay.
Any other deleters out there?
We're gonna
Gatekeepers.
everyone gets amnesty right now.
This is the one amnesty time.
Everyone gets amnesty right now. All right, so Friday, can we say Friday 12 noon? watch the sidebars. Friday, 12 noon. That is the last opportunity for you to review, revise, add to anyone else's document.
That's the 20th, April 20th.
Friday, April 20th. Thank you. 12 noon.
We moved it away from the Saturday because we needed.
No, Saturday at 12 o'clock is when I'm closing the documents, period.
Okay, so what do we have to have done by Friday? Because a lot
Friday,
of us are
12
in the
noon
midst
is
of the
when
workday.
you have the opportunity to review and add to others' documents.
Or
between 12 noon on between 12 noon on Friday and 12 noon on Saturday, the subcommittee lead needs the opportunity to look at any additions that were made.
do we think we need more than, let's say, 4, well, let's see,
Can we make it
a.m.? I mean, if we have a chunk of time to noon on Saturday, the 21st, do we think that's enough time?
You tell me what you need.
I don't know.
I'm already relinquishing my weekend. You tell me what you need. Jim.
As the lead for administration subcommittee, I either need it by noon on Friday, or I need someone else to step up to meet the noon Saturday commitment, because I have a commitment all day Saturday, and so I will be away from a computer in front of a group of people all day Saturday, and so I'm willing to step aside if people really feel the time is important, or I really need that noon deadline for the administration subcommittee.
Just want to throw out there that this Saturday, the 21st, is the Autism Walk here in Pasadena, which is going to involve many of us. So.
Every year.
It's a big day.
Do we think?
Tony. Thank you.
We wanted to ask about the deadline.
Wait. Before you go into that.
Well, there's a reason, because it's a scaffold. Because we've brought stuff to the board meetings. We needed to have it there 5 days before. Now, is it possible that we could work a couple days leeway here, because we don't need it by the 24th? It gives us an additional 14 days or something to make this, say, the end of the day Sunday, midnight Sunday, or to build some more time onto this rather than the 12 o'clock noon Saturday. Just because in order for it to be presented to the board and it be able to be copied and everything else, you only need the 5 days. So it would be due to them by the 3rd of May. So there's some leeway here.
Well, bear in mind,
I don't know what your schedule is.
No, bear in mind, I'm saying those dates that we're talking about are internal to the group. Those weren't related to the board. Those were internal to the group.
So it would have to be voted on.
No, what I'm saying is those dates were to meet the 23rd date. But what I believe you were speaking of prior to, while Leonard was out of the room, was that 23rd date being pushed back.
Right.
So I want to make certain we keep those two separate.
Right, but if we push it back, because we need to make this deadline in order to get to that's the first step towards getting it to that board meeting by the 3rd. If we had a couple of days in here, and I think we've already kind of bent the rules all over the place on the Brown Act anyway, if we could take a look at it in every direction, and sideways, forwards, and backwards, that if we added a couple of days here, I think at least for us, it would give us some time to actually sit down and really, do some.
I'm sorry.
The
Tony, I know you said that in jest, but I'm not going to be on a board where we say that we adjusted and did things against the Brown Act. So let's leave that out as a amiable comment, but that's not actually the case.
I disagree.
Okay. The question.
Okay, then we have a lot of problems. If we've been going against the Brown Act, then we
the question on the floor is whether or not the date to submit documents for the board. The question on the floor is whether or not we can submit the documents to the board after the 23rd.
I would have to even check to find out, because the deadline that we have of the dates in order to do a presentation is due on Monday. That's the calendar that we have for all of our different dates. So I would have to check with the superintendent's office to see if that's even available.
Sharon.
Herman.
So, because we're not resolving everything that needs to be done, and it's going to be, it's a live document. It's an ongoing. We're talking about continuity also of something that is not going to go away. But may I suggest that if it does need to be submitted by, it's like the 23rd is the last date, and we have to, maybe those of us who think something needs to be added, we create an addendum that then gets submitted that night, and maybe we make sure that it gets into Diane for the Friday packet for the board as an addendum.
Monica.
I was going to say the same thing. If this report is to the board, then all we need to do is get it to them in sufficient time for them to read it before we actually present it. I'm not sure who has to read it in between then and decide anything about it, so that would be strange to me. And they have a Friday communique for such documents like this, so they can have the weekend to look them over prior to them being presented. Why are we breaking what's traditionally done here by having to have it in a month or so before the board reading?
It is the district policy. All I have is the dates. No, all I have is the dates. That's the date that I have to follow if I want to do a presentation for the board. I have to get it in by that first date.
But you can get that date without the document.
But I'm just saying that's how we have to do it.
No, I'm saying, but you can get the date without the document. That way it can be as accurate as possible for your sake. So there won't be a lot of people like myself or someone getting up there and saying something like, that's not what we said or what we meant.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I would hate to see something like that happen and belie the validity of all the hard work we've done. And that's like I have a real concern about that.
I have to say, the only date that I know, the only date that I have been given, the only date that I have been informed of is April 23rd. My job is to have you ready for the only date that I know, the only date that I've been given, and the only date that I've been aware of, and that's April 23rd. Louise.
But tomorrow is April 19th, and I think that gives us adequate time to find out if it's possible for us to get a different date, one that's closer to May 8th, because it is a long distance, 2 weeks. And I don't know if that's generally the way it's done. So if we could check tomorrow.
Let me just check. I keep saying I have to check with the superintendent.
Tomorrow.
We keep going on and on. We're wasting time. You still have all these goals.
So you'll check
Let's
tomorrow?
Proceed on. Yes, I already said
communicate to us tomorrow?
We don't need to talk about something for 10, 15 minutes.
Okay.
I mean, let's stop.
But if we know the answer tomorrow, then we'll know if we can push beyond the 23rd.
If I get an answer from
Once we get information about the date, if we need to work with our original schedule, I'll push that out. If we have a different schedule that we can work with, I'll push that out. But either way, we just need to make certain that we're ready for whichever the response is. All right? Okay. Every student, every school has already done. Professional development was not here on Saturday. Is their document here? Yeah. Okay. So let's distribute professional development. Just take one. I'll pass this one this way. Thank you.
I'm still waiting for another copy for collaborative.
Sharon, did we find the sign-in sheet? Did that ever come to be?
No, that was
because Leanne and I have to leave, so we wanted to be able to.
Okay.
Okay, and since this is being passed around, Sharon, I'll just ask real quick, what is our package going to consist of? Each one of these goals, the minutes, and some kind of cover statement, or what are we doing?
The package, again, I need the sidebars to remain at a minimum so I can make certain everyone hears it. Here's this. The package will consist of those items that you said. The minutes, it will consist of the documents that have been created throughout the process. You remember those various tables, et cetera, that I've given you throughout the process. The objectives, of course, which I am going to consolidate into basically one cohesive, one document, so that it isn't groups of documents, but one document. So basically for me, that's why I wanted us all to use the same form, because essentially there'll be maybe a cover sheet between each section, and that's about it. And then an executive summary, which will highlight those items that we polled as the top 10. And so the executive summary will need to be prepared. Tony.
We received the professional development. Just wanted to remind everyone that this one had not been read in yet. And because there were no members here when we had our discussion, and because it's not up on the internet, and because the minutes aren't available, I just wanted to let them know, Ms. Higa, I wanted to let you know that in this one, we need to make sure that because it says Carol, and I'm assuming that's you, that to take out names and put in titles. So they want that, but that was something that was discussed at the last meeting, and we were doing that and adjusting all that. I just wanted to make sure that y'all knew about that. Okay.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I also want to ask you, it's because we don't want to tie it to any particular person. We want to tie it to a function or role within the district. I also want to ask if you would, your recommendation, if it is based on a recommendation from one of our documents, that you actually cite that number. So if it's like 3.3, 2.1, it gives us a document to reference it, to go back to. Are there any other questions, comments? Just quickly thumbing through the professional development document. Yeah, for instance, if you're on, you've got the note then about all the names. You already know. You already know. Okay. Okay.
And I apologize, Ms. Higa. I only called your name because you're the only person I know for sure on that committee.
Who's in compliance? Who's in compliance and monitoring?
You, Jim. No, you don't. Mm-hmm. I think you're it.
Thank you.
Okay. That's professional development. Any questions, comments? All right. Transition. Louise did a fantastic job of sharing with us what was going to be in the document, and now, ladies and gentlemen, you have the real deal. I received an email from her on Sunday saying she had just spent 8 hours working on the document.
Lady with a mission, and she provided tutorials too.
Don't worry about the formatting. That will be taken care of.
Yeah, it lines up on the document online, but then it doesn't when you put it up.
Yeah, it's all right, because we'll put it on legal paper. Louise, is there anything specific you want to point out to us?
Honestly, the transition portion was done more by other individuals I worked more on the subcommittee. I worked more on the extended school year, primarily because that is an objective that had not been looked at before. So I had to do a lot of research and come up with everything. So I haven't had a chance to review the transition part. I don't know if anybody else in our subcommittee wants to, but I will say one thing that I think is imperative that I am recommending for the extended school year is a survey that would be conducted for the 2012 extended school year. That would be anonymous and would be completed by parents, students, paraprofessionals, teachers, everyone who's involved in the extended school year for 2012. We're asking to have it communicated on the news flash, the weekly news flash, on the website, and we're asking to have them turned in by a certain day. We're asking for the data to go to the special ed executive director for review, and we're asking to have all of this done no more than a month after the extended school year ends. And then we want the findings to be communicated. We want ongoing communication about the fact that the survey has taken place. And then we want a communication about the findings, but we also want the surveys to be available for people to look at in the event they want. We want to use that data to help establish a baseline for the task force to move forward and make, to maybe reinforce some of the other recommendations that are, and objectives that are spelled out in the extended school year.
Okay.
And so,
Ruth Ann.
I also wanted to mention that I submitted SMART goals for the transition ESY SMART objective template, but did not have anything to do with the meetings per se because I was involved with the administration and what was the other one? Anyway, I was not present at the task force specifically for ESY. So I did not handle any of the other transitions either. But I did want to clarify, I was under the impression that the ESY is for 2013, not 2012, but I'm very hopeful that the recommendations and things that we bring up for ESY will be reflected, hopefully, and considered for the current ESY, which is coming.
that's the survey, because I'm also recommending a survey for ongoing years. But I also wanted to mention the extended school year bridge type recommendation, objective, which sort of ties into the system that we're recommending in the extended school year be set up to identify the fact that, okay, this is pre-K and this is young adults, and we know that along the way, based upon IEPs, et cetera, there are certain milestones that the students are going to hit in their development where they're going to need to start preparing to do certain things, and those will be addressed in the extended school year bridge program that's discussed in this document.
Again, if I may, I thank you for listing the recommendation number. That is very, very helpful. What was I going to say? What was I going to say?
You have to thank somebody else for that. Whoever did that, that's up in the transition portion.
Well, the thing that I was going to say, though, is it's not consistent. It's at the top of the document, but not the end. So be aware of that before it gets turned in.
And if I can speak to the transition piece just real quickly, what you see in front of you in terms of the italics are portions that I actually typed in there in red. If you go to Google Docs, just to show the differences that I had typed in. Quite frankly, typing a lot of that furiously over the last 24 hours. And I want to admit that being new to Google Docs, I'm afraid I broke etiquette and I did a little revising. So if you're looking at this and you're thinking, wait a minute, I typed in something, what happened to it? I want to vow to the group that there was simply an attempt to marry what was already there to what we were trying to input. And so if it was there, rest assured it was not deleted. It was either added to another piece or revised in a certain way. I'm not going to take you through the entire plan because you're adults and you can review it online, but one thing I wanted to bring to your attention, the very first recommendation was 1.1, which was at least 2 elementary inclusion schools identified, trained, and supported as inclusive. And one of the questions that was asked by folks who went online is why just 2 inclusion schools? And so literally I wrote in there just full implementation of the proposed action plan for every student, every school, because to me, that is answered within that piece as well. So that's how we address that. But in general, for transitions, we were really looking to address several different types of transitions. The most obvious one, of course, is transitioning into and out of different levels of schooling. So into and out of elementary school, into and out of middle school, into and out of high school. Also, though, too, looking to provide support for students who are transitioning from one level of service to another, or from one school to another. So maybe you start out at one middle school and you have the skills that you need to survive at middle school, but now you need an orientation to help you really be able to transition into a different middle school. And then also as well, too, transitioning from the general ed classroom to the special ed classroom throughout the course of the day and what that looks like, and really tried to incorporate that within our recommendations and our action plan. And then the last piece that was, I think, really important for me was making sure that there's a systematic approach for transitions, and you see that starts on actually page 2, and really tried to break that down for what that systematic approach would look like at the elementary level, at the middle school level, and at the high school level, and looking to establish a set of guidelines that each site then could take to utilize in developing their transition plan. And it may not be a cookie cutter system, it may look different at one site than it does at another, but having a very basic set of guidelines then that folks can follow as they go through there. You will notice as you look at the elementary and as you look at the, and we broke it down at elementary, I should go back for a second, between the transition into kindergarten and then the transition into subsequent years after that. You'll see a great deal of repeat within here. For instance, you'll see that for each level, we're saying by May of each year, students need to know what their placement is. By May of each year, teachers need to know who their students are going to be moving forward. Making sure that students and parents are invited to visit the classroom to acquaint themselves with the teachers in the classroom environment. Also providing students with the opportunity to shadow the class for a day. And most importantly, providing release time so that the staff that are working with the students have an opportunity to collaborate as to best practices and to monitor the students' progress. And then 2, scheduling transition IEP meetings with parents and their teachers within the first month of school. You'll see that at all 3 levels. And even though it was somewhat repetitive, I felt those steps were absolutely vital and need to be in place at every single level. So I felt it was okay to go ahead and repeat them. Then you'll see recommendations for orientation experiences, both at the elementary, middle school, and high school level, looking a little bit different depending on the needs. For instance, the elementary school level, utilizing ESY not only to support the regular curriculum in the school year, but also as a transitional piece for elementary students, looking to provide at least a 1-day bridge program for middle school students, and then perhaps even a 3-day bridge program for high school students moving forward. But definitely open. I didn't have a whole lot on high school, so folks who know more about high school, definitely let us know and I'll add it. Mike.
I definitely support what you mentioned about repeating things, even if there's slight differences. We can't assume that people are going to look at this and say this is their intent. So we can't assume that they're going to carry an assumption on our part. So we have to be very specific. So I concur with that. I haven't read this, so just a quick question. Did you cover the entry into the pre-K?
You know what? For most of it was entry into kindergarten, so we can certainly look at that. Entry into pre-K.
Because the reason why we had a conversation at one of the meetings in depth about pre-K and where it should be is because pre-K typically, many families enter the system at pre-K, and how that transaction goes defines their relationship with the school district
Okay.
throughout. So I think there are several things, or at least a couple things to address with regards to.
And operating transparently, then I would turn to my colleagues here on this task force. As a middle school guy, I'm not as expert on that pre-K experience. So please, and I would suggest right under elementary school, if we could go right in between elementary school and transition to kindergarten. It could be transition to pre-K, specific recommendations, and we'll add those in there, and then transition to kindergarten. Would appreciate your help on that.
Yeah, because we had pre-K in ours, we did transition, what was needed for transition from pre-K, from the regional center to pre-K and pre-K to kindergarten in ours, and we gladly give it over to you all. But basically, it had to do with having behavior plans in place prior to the child arriving at the site, you know.
So that's embedded within which report already? Because I can turn to
ours, the
collaboration
curriculum and pre-K, it says, and
I'll definitely review that.
And there is no harm in borrowing from one another.
Oh no, there's quite a bit of overlap actually when you go and you take a look at them. So no, I'll go back.
It had to do with implementing the communication, so finding some mode of communication prior to them arriving at the regular school site, and then implementing it. And you know what I mean, just so they have a good chance of success right off, because everything's in place when they get there.
I'll definitely review that, but again,
But
definitely add.
With pre-K, because a lot of the students enter the district from, let's say, the regional center. And my question is, are we covering all of the students qualified to begin being considered by the PUSD at age 3, right? So are we covering all of that? And if we're not, can someone point us in the right direction so we can make certain we
I
cover?
would say
They
Hodges.
They do pre-K.
But is that collaboration, has that, which,
Yeah.
but no, my question is
it covered in the document?
is it covered in any of these documents? Where do we get it from to include it in?
You would have to look at the pre-K and the, like, if not the agreement the district has with the regional centers, because the regional centers used to handle that part, and then they do the transition, you know, and have a meeting with the school. You would have to see what the regional center, like on their side, has, what they do directly, or you'd have to go to the Department of Ed and see how it is that they handle, like, the funding. I think it's mostly county funding, isn't it, Mr.
And Head
McLaren?
Start, too.
Yeah.
For which part? I came in the middle of it, so I probably shouldn't
They were concerned about prior to pre-K, because you guys, doesn't the district actually handle infant as well?
The only program that we have we do have an infant toddler. There's very little.
Right.
How many kids? I'm not even thinking.
Or like high risk sort of.
It's really just for high risk,
Right.
high risk individuals that we have.
So they
and it's-
definitely would probably need a plan for transitioning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Then
so
we have a
that's
number
one
of
way.
ones that come
Right.
about 2.5 years old and they're
Right.
with regional center. Then we have to go through that process before they turn their age 3 in order to have that IEP, because they will have an IFSP, which is the
Right.
individual.
That's
I
what
always
we have
forget
at
what it
the
stands
regional
for.
center.
So that's what we're asking about.
Mainly, yeah, service
We
plan.
want to be able to know where to go so we can, unless you want to be the person who goes into. Okay, so then we're just asking if someone could point us in the right direction.
Could they go to
What's the question?
In place.
Well, we're talking about the transition into pre-K. So starting at pre-K through exiting high school, and then even after you have. So, you know, all of this stuff is kind of sort of already in place, but we've identified some.
It might be beneficial. It might be beneficial to go to the website of. It's called Regional Center.
The Frank Lannerman Act and the Frank Lannerman Regional Center.
It might be beneficial to look at their website and see if they actually have a reference to what you're referring to.
They'll take you to the Department of Developmental Services that will cover the Frank D. Lannerman and San Gabriel, which is right, you guys get both here, San Gabriel?
Yeah, both of them.
Okay.
What's
And-
actually
and
just
that might be enough to just give you the framework for what you're looking for. And then if not, then
But we're also wondering where to look to understand what the district is doing already.
What's the specific question you're asking?
We're talking about transition.
For-
And our objectives.
Kids coming into
We're
preschool.
starting, yeah. At this point, we're starting, our document only addresses transitioning to first grade. And so Mike brought that to our attention, and we need to be able to use the appropriate language to fit into our SMART objectives, to also include the transition into the pre-K program.
Okay.
So that's why we're asking these questions. We're trying to know where to go. I know that's how my daughter entered into the PUSD from the Frank Lanterman Regional Center at 3. But then I don't remember the particulars because that was a while ago.
Yeah, probably some of that information will go from our procedural handbook because we have to address the transition from early childhood.
So that's
to
online?
Our program, it would be within our procedural guidelines. We're actually restructuring it right now.
But is the old format online now? Or where do we get it from?
I don't know. Is it online, Carol? Yeah, I'm not sure.
So how do we get it?
Yeah, it's such an old one. That's the problem with it. Yeah.
But before you speak, Tony, I'm just trying to confirm where we get the district's documentation that deals with this particular system that's already in place.
Do you have that one I gave you, the one we're looking at as perspective, as the draft? I mean, I can look for it because we do have one. We have a couple of them that we're looking as drafts of looking at them. I can at least show you what
Is this
those ones look
electronic?
like. Yeah, it's electronic. I'll be no, actually, mine's a PDF.
But that's
Yeah, we can figure it
electronic,
out. It's
because
electronic.
that's
I'll have to
something
just
that you
scan it
could
on.
give to us as a draft. We're just trying to get, language. I mean, send us an email that basically says,
If you
this is
send
a
it- What
draft,
happens during
that you all are changing things, and, I don't know, give us whatever instructions you can.
Well, and if there are established guidelines, why reinvent the wheel? It's just a matter of making sure those guidelines are in place and being implemented. So,
Yeah.
Leonard, if
and we
you
never
can
actually
forward
had
that.
any ever compliance issues or anything from going from that age to our preschool.
But this is our
At that age,
documentation, and
anyways.
since we're
But-
including.
You still get them in preschool, but it's later on.
So, Leonard, if you can forward that to me, I'll make sure that's a part.
Or to our
problem.
committee, because.
Yeah.
Our
No, no, I'm
subcommittee,
sorry.
Yeah. Or why just our subcommittee? Because everybody needs to be able to go in and make adjustments. I guess that's something that would have been part of the documentations that
We have a lot of it in ours. and
we were
give it to you.
asking for. Okay.
Tony, your hand.
My question was, it's actually been answered in the dialogue, so.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sharon, I just wanted to say, one of the reasons I became as active in in following the school district, the ongoings, was because of the transition from the regional center to the school district, which, it's mandated by the state law through the early intervention, but and I have advocated at the state level to change to raise the age. I think the regional center should be holding on to the kids, I think, a little longer, and not handing it over to the school districts that sometimes don't continue with the services at the extent that the regional center is providing, which was the case with me and with my son, and sets really the tone for how parents will be dealing with the school system for the next, could be 15, 18 years, right? We're talking of, a long trajectory based on, an initial, the very first IEP. And at 2.5, when kids, are being diagnosed at 2, then maybe something can be in place, but they're having transition meetings at 2.5. And so, you know, I think it is important to have some things in place. You know, even education, more on, you know, the parent side. We, you know, I personally, and I'll just say this publicly, we stayed put with the services that the regional center was providing, and so that they wouldn't end until we had something in place. But I don't know if all parents know that. Anyways, it's probably one of the most important transitions, I think, in special education, and especially for the kids that have, you know, usually if they're identified at 2.5, that young, then they, and they're, you know, if they're going to need services, they probably have more, you know, higher needs. So it is important to know that you know, what's in place. Is it Scott Center? The regional center will pay for you to put your child at any preschool of your choice. So if you want to go to, you know, if you want to go to Pacific Oaks, you know, you have a choice to put your child at Pacific Oaks, and the regional center will pay that. You know, the whole idea of the regional center is to have you choose preschools and places in your youth services and places in your community, and you know, in any case, it's state money, so you know why services are sometimes cut at that crucial age is a concern, and hopefully our legislatures in the future will consider upping the age and letting the regional center hold on to the kids a little more, or allowing more overlap. You know, I don't know how they would resolve it, but to cut services, and that, you know, there definitely needs to be more of a marriage in that transition.
Great, thank you. Time check, it is 13 minutes to 9.
Real quick, I just want to be on the record. The reason, in addition to the relationship aspect of the parent or the family with the school district at pre-K level, I'm also of the belief that if you provide services early, then perhaps down the road you won't need any services, but certainly you can remove services on the road. So on the record, it's important that those students that are coming in early get everything that they can get so that we can remove them down the road instead of having a legacy of continued costs and services.
All the more reason, definitely to follow the guidelines that I get from Leonard, but two, input from the folks who have gone through that experience firsthand. Please make sure we have that so we can incorporate it into our plan for pre-K.
Thank you. Next is administration. They presented on Saturday. Jim was the person who shared with us. Question, are there any major changes, anything we need to be aware of that has been changed since Saturday?
I have 5 pages of outstanding changes that did not get typed in between Saturday and today.
Okay.
They will be in by close of business tomorrow, which for me is about 8 o'clock. So by 8 o'clock tomorrow, administration will be up.
Okay, great.
And I can forward, if you send me an email, I will forward you all of the additions that have been forwarded to me so that you can review those. And then you can monitor how I incorporate them into the document.
You know, I think by putting them in the document, you know, we just all go in and get it. Yeah, if we want to see it, we'll go and get it. All right, great, thank you. That was administration.
Last one's collaborative, is the last one we got.
Actually, there's compliance and monitoring, which we don't have a document.
As the newly appointed lead of the compliance and accountability group, I will have something for that in by close of business tonight.
Fantastic. Wow, these really are hot off the press.
We're
now.
already
They are
past your
still
close
warm.
of business, though, Jim.
Yes.
For the record.
My business day is based on tasks, not hours.
Yeah. Here you go.
Every student, every funds. These are extras.
Yes.
Every student, every school went around, right?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
There's
Okay.
extras. You pass them this way.
What you have, yes, please.
I'm just keeping
The extras send this way. What you have in front of you now is collaboration, curriculum and classroom, evidence-based assessments and practices, and pre-K. This group had really kind of the largest task because they had the most area to cover. I want to thank them for listing their recommendations. We do have a format challenge, though, don't we?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because it didn't appear like this on screen.
No.
Okay.
So.
Well, why don't you give us some highlights and
we can do that.
Encourage everyone to read the document online because this is not their full document.
No. I'm just going to read all our goals and then
Collaboration and curriculum.
We just passed that one out. Collaboration.
It stopped here.
No, we had this half. You took another half. Must not have.
Okay.
Is that collaboration?
Does everyone have collaboration and curriculum on my right?
But we want our goals to get on the record. They're not.
Sorry. No, keep it. It's all right.
You can keep it.
Have some extras. It's okay. We have plenty.
Just us.
There's collaborative. There is collaborative. Yeah, it got stalled over there.
Okay.
You need more? I have more.
Highlights.
I can quickly just read our goals into the record, and then everybody can look later at the document.
Okay.
So we had one about Section 504 compliance, maintenance of the 504 compliance district-wide, and IDE and 504 training, plus all educators, and establishing protocols for students moving from school to school through collaboration between sending and receiving school services. I'd like to preface that so far this is our documentation book and backup research for our goals, and it's quite lengthy and involved, so we didn't want to try to copy that. We had a goal for opportunities for inclusion in the event that they decided that we weren't going to have full inclusion. We wanted to have a set of goals that would cover a partial inclusion situation. For pre-K, I wanted evidence, our group wanted evidence-based practices in social skills. There's also another goal that addressed, there's several goals. Right, that's right. And he was just pointing out that later on you'll see a goal that's for pre-K that's not just about social skills, but also trying to identify prior to arrival trying to decide early on whether or not somebody under the child fine statute, right, those invisible disabilities and those people as early as possible. We have acceptance of all students at all school sites, as well as the objective and some timelines. And we want access to the core curriculum and design and impact of the least restrictive environment and mainstreaming policy, since some of that still is going to be going on. I'm not sure how the implementation is going to happen here now. Opportunities for inclusion appears there as well. Acceptance of all students at all schools. We have a way to do that and save money, and a way to, and studies to back that up. Now, let's see.
There's a lot that's designed for socialization.
Yeah, because our basic decision had been that instead of having individual social programs, that we do socialization throughout the continuum from the very beginning, so that they learn to socialize appropriately with their peers, and how different ways to do that based on different research-based studies on how to do that. So then you don't have to spend money developing a program here, a program there, and really a lot of the kids could use some socialization skills besides the SPED kids. Addition of inclusive schools and diversification of inclusion programs at each school to accommodate students at the home school. So in other words, this should be something that's done immediately, and it should be start very, very young. And there are studies that show if you start very young with this, that by the time the children become school age and whatever, they don't need all these individual plans, or they may not need them, not to the extent that we have now. developed blended program because we found out there appeared to be some discrepancy. Some people said there were still blended inclusion classes, and other people said we got rid of all of them. So some members of our subcommittee were confused about that. And it says include resource room program to support, let me just turn the page. It doesn't say. Performing students, monitor class size and staffing. We have another goal that addresses having a sensory room. So I'm thinking.
It's still being moved, yeah.
Yeah, so we just need to combine some of these so that they're not so extensive.
And we've talked to a couple of the
Microphone.
We've discussed this with a couple of occupational therapists who are very, very receptive to this idea, and where some of the schools have rooms that had been used for aversive, as far as I'm concerned, aversive guidance. This would be something that would be actually utilized for a place for students to go when they are having a sensory need for sensory.
And that would work for all the disabilities because ED kids, all different groups of disabilities have overload states. Some may act out, some may shut down, but they need somewhere safe that they can go.
Okay. We have a question.
No, just a comment. Judy Packard, who is an OT for many years in Pasadena Unified, has set up a sensory room on Roosevelt's campus. So
Well, then
she
we
would
would
be a
love to take a look
direct
at it and see if it's some
contact
template that
to
we
go
can
see.
use. Thanks. Who's keeping that list? You gonna keep that list? Okay.
And
All
we-
right.
One of the, and I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I don't know where
Go
we're
ahead.
at. One of the things that we're very concerned about, and we've talked to teachers across the district about this that are in the special day classes, and one of the things that seems to be a constant, and one of the things that we're not finding is supported anywhere, is the idea that children should be grouped in more than, in a combination. All research says combination classes aren't as strong learning environments as children learning at their grade level with, a third grade or a fourth grade. But when I haven't been able to find anywhere any studies that support placing a group of 4th, 5th, 6th graders together, or 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th graders together. So one of the things that we're looking at, and what we would like to recommend, is that this practice stop. Past practice isn't necessarily best practice, and that if there's a combination class for any reason in anywhere, that it's 2 grades. It's not 3 grades, it's not 4 grades. Because to ask our special day class teachers to be responsible for the implementation of 5 different grades of curriculum, and to put that kind of demand on a teacher to teach that many levels is asking more than any instructor would be able to do.
And it's also my belief that that's why you have the inclusion task force never able to go beyond elementary school, because it's fine when you're in elementary school and you have one teacher and that's your teacher and she can do all that, but once you get to middle school you might have a bunch of teachers and you would have to get commitment from all of them. Okay.
And we're looking at the breakdowns of the special day classes here.
Yeah.
We've got a 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, K1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's too many grades. 2, 3. There's one, and it's just a matter of restructuring the classrooms. Here, 9 through 12. Wow, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. 4 grades. 4 grades for a teacher to be responsible for all of that different curriculum. That's just asking a bit much.
And also, you would save a lot of money by changing that configuration, because if you intervene early, rather than wait until the kids get in those grades and have no chance of a diploma at all, And therefore, like for instance, high-functioning autistic individuals, when we researched that, even ones who did excellent in school and had great grades, they graduated, but they still live at home and can't find gainful employment because of their inability to socialize appropriately.
Are there other highlights you want to cover?
I would like
sheet
to.
that you're referring to, that's just, we just do grade spans of showing where the person's at. Doesn't mean there's having all those students from those
right,
grades.
but
One
it-
second, hold on, because you have another issue that's going on is because of single subject with no child left behind.
That's correct.
They have to have that right credential, so they will have a credential in their English. That's the classes they're teaching within that part. The only
Okay.
ones when we have like a large grade span is when we're going into more of our students who take the Kappa,
Yeah.
more of your severe population.
Right.
So and that's when they're doing
we
the
have-
different
we have that
adaptions
there,
and
and
so
that's-
forth. But when you get your mild moderate, we have another credentialing issue that we have
Right.
to also follow. So a lot of those kids, they're being moved around. They're not necessarily doing, I have these 9th graders here, I got to do this. I got 10th graders doing this. Oh, I got 11th graders here. It's not like, oh, we have them
Right.
all at one big.
Yeah.
And we
I'm
do
seeing
have
it in
here
the
that-
That's
classroom.
what we just have.
Right now, that may be in in isolated situations, but I have had the discussion with a few teachers, and in regards to this, and they're being asked to cover a lot of subject areas across a lot of grades, and I can only I can comment on my own child's situation. That's a 3, 4, 5. There is there's 4 years of age difference in that classroom, and there's a lot of mileage and a lot of different grade curriculum that teacher's being asked, or actually not even being asked, it's being required to cover it, and it's not reasonable. It's just not reasonable.
Can we hurry so I could at least get through the goals, and then people can put that
I
online?
was actually going to say that because it's now after 9
Right.
o'clock.
So let
if
me
you'll
just
hold
quickly-
your question, just write it to the end.
So I can quickly get through this.
And I'm sorry.
Anyway, so we do have goals on the universal design, accepts, in our position, acceptance of all students at all sites, accessing the core curriculum where you don't have to create a new curriculum. You actually deal with the same curriculum the regular ed students have, but it's either modified or accommodated so that they can access it. And they understand early on whether or not it can be done and whether or not it would be count toward a diploma versus a certificate, because then kids get on diploma tracks so late they can't possibly graduate. Then we have, Tony wanted to make sure that we have supports for moving from grade into grade, but I think everybody addressed that same problem. And in terms of intervention strategies in general education, monitor the referral rates. That's to maybe if you monitor your referral rates and the strategies used ahead of time by various teachers, you might begin to see a trend if you collect the data in maybe some forms of what they're thinking culturally, why it is that we end up with so many kids either being referred or sent to, assumed to be ED or some other diagnoses. For pre-K, we want evidence-based practices for all social skills program. We have video learning here for both activities of daily living as well as social skills, because the district is responsible to the age of 22 for those things as well. Opportunities for inclusion, again, was a different sort of concept that
Going
then what.
backwards.
Yeah, I think I am. I went backwards again. Now, if I go back forward here, so I don't forget, I'm missing a lot. It's kind of a mishmash. Addressing the pre-K classroom conditions, teachers and learning components, and parental involvement. In addition, for this pre-K classroom conditions and teaching, we wanted to make sure that there was, in the sensory room, if these kids start having meltdowns, access to fresh air and equipment and sensitive lighting and things like that would help them calm down quicker in that room, so they're not always having to bring these things to the actual classroom.
Yeah, it's not a
Yeah, so it's not like, you know, a timeout, because we don't want to make it too much fun, but we do want to make the adrenaline level go long enough so that learning can take place rather than not take place.
Sidebars, watch the sidebars.
A comprehensive district-wide professional development program, but now that we have a professional development goal, now we see some that can be eliminated. Opportunities, there's the same thing. Includes early screening for visual difficulties in all autistic individuals due to the current high rate of this difficulty and its direct impact on accessing curriculum, ADLs, and age-appropriate social behavior. And there's only one, we have a lot of references, but this one was actually put in. This is because a lot of, if someone can't read and write off the chalkboard, and they're being dinged for not paying attention because they look like they're looking out the window or doing something else, we have some studies that demonstrate that learning still took place for those kids. And that
Yes, that's
because
the
of a cultural
right.
issue.
Near and far point copying stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so that's very important what those things look like. If they had a handbook knowing the way it looks for autistic individuals who are learning, it's not necessarily the same it would look for their neurotypical peers. All right, and then well, like for instance, one of the studies we have shows that when a student appears distracted doing self-stimulatory behavior, or behaving in a way that may be disruptive to other students, the cause of the behavior will be identified first and either accepted or replaced with a more appropriate behavior if so interrupted, because that seems to be an excuse or maybe a valid reason sometimes that they don't want autistic individuals or certain disabled hyperactive individuals included because they're disrupting our learning process. So there is ways to find, if you understand the processing disorders that the kids has, what channels are open, and finding a substitute that's age appropriate that doesn't interfere in the regular classroom. So, let's see. We wanted a district ombudsman, a staff attorney. A district ombudsman would be for the parents to take their initial grievances to, rather than them going out and seeking an attorney and becoming hypervigilant, like some of us did or had done in the past, when in reality, if we had an ombudsman, somebody else we could have went to, we could have cut down, probably got rid of certain problems really quick and not had a lot of litigation. Also, a staff attorney is something I've advocated for years, because if you had a staff attorney that the administrative staff and teachers could call and ask about specific things, then there'd be no need for you to use the 8 or 9 law firms that you use now, who will want to see the whole file or different things before they even answer a simple question. You know what I mean? I mean, the motivation for a staff attorney to do good work and the motivation for a law firm is completely different. You understand? They make money for money, whereas a staff attorney would have a set position to be available these times to answer questions that come up about IDEA, FAPE, and least restrictive environment, probably on a daily basis. We wrote here that there should be an assessments to identify specifically all modes of communication used by a student very early on, so that we would be able to stop that archaic thinking that if an autistic or an individual speaks, that's their preferred mode, and we shouldn't try anything else, since expressive and receptive language is now found in autism to be on one side of the brain and not two. So it doesn't even develop the way we think it does. So we wanted those things. And RTI not just behavioral, but in all areas consistent with the SELPA and child find obligations.
We thought it was language arts RTI, so, you know, right there was some confusion with our group. I was having a discussion about RTI in regards to language arts, not with anything to do with behavioral RTI at all. Right. And I had no idea. We were within our group. We were having a conversation about two absolutely different things.
Let me finish. Almost done. Okay. Also, decreasing the use of permanent outside contractors. There was an overarching issue with decreasing the use of private contractors, decreasing attorneys' fees, and decreasing the amount of money that is the maintenance of effort and the / encroachment, or whatever number you want to call it. And our goals specifically address these things, reducing those needs that would find you specific money to fund these changes. Okay, so if you decrease in the use of permanent outside consultants, a consultant by default should train everybody, do their job, and then everybody's trained, and then they move on to whatever. They shouldn't just always end up being hired and just staying here forever until finally we're just so dependent on them we have to get them on staff. And a lot of that goes on. I went back and looked through several months of purchase orders, and it is still going on where you're using a lot of consultants that way when you have staff people making quite a bit of money who should have been trained by now to handle those issues. There's just a couple more here. Assistive technology, both low-tech and high-tech, available at every school site. It could be something as simple as a thick pencil to lined paper with where you could feel the middle line to know where to turn and write, to something where you move up from a Big Mac computer device to something else. Cognitive behavioral therapy to train staff in appropriate cognitive techniques and strategies for all disabilities and age groups. We have to remember our kids, all of our, even middle school and high school, they're thinking, and they have personalities. So you have to deal with that as well in order to become successful in getting them to tell us what they know. And true parental collaboration in the IEP process and documentation, it was truly considered. That's where we wanted to add to the IEP a spot to show that the parental concerns are actually considered, because that was one of the main things I often get calls about, is that they didn't even consider what I said. And I mean, I don't know if they did or not. I wasn't there. But whatever happened, those things make people sue and file lawsuits, you understand, because they think they're not being given the respect that they're supposed to have. Rewrite of a board policy allowing principals at school sites to deny access of students based on their IEP needs, not accept appropriate accommodations and modifications of SPED, I call them SPED, but special ed students, since they generally have no understanding of special education, discrimination under the Civil Rights Act, or much less the 504 IDA and Ed Code sections affecting special education. Right now, we believe the principals have too much power to exclude students. We'd like to see an end to that because, you know, if they didn't have so much power, then it would be easy for them to have their grants and their programs and implement them, and a principal not come along and say, well, he doesn't want that kid there because he drills too much or whatever, different reasons. I've heard all kinds of things from parents over the years. And the other thing was, one other one was the over-identification of African-American males. And we have some goals specific for that. We have several. They haven't been entered. The use of audiobooks and whiteboards, and every textbook comes with the transparencies that you can use an overhead projector and the CD to access the curriculum, which is more user-friendly for visual learners, which disabled, a lot of kids with disabilities tend to be visual learners. And so if you're just up there writing on a chalkboard and they have to look up and down and take your notes, you could see the problem right there. When if you had an interesting 3D model of the same book, same chapter, and overheads as reinforcement, you might see a greater amount of learning. And there's more, but that'll do for tonight.
Thank you. There's a couple of things before we take questions.
There was one other that we wanted to.
Tony.
This is part of the same the same report, though.
He says I missed something. I
Yeah,
probably did.
that's what I'm trying to point out. There was something that was missed. We wanted to. There are frequently when there's a more visible disability, oftentimes it's recognized as a familiar. There could be a familial trait, and that those children are. They wouldn't be identified as being at risk, but they would certainly be a child that would be looked at. With autism as a disability, and because often its manifestations are later, especially if it's Asperger's, what happens is the younger siblings could and often do imitate the older siblings. So we wanted to be sure that there was something that it's early intervention, but it could already be past an early intervention. Child could already be in kindergarten by this time. That this child's being looked at, and with each child that is identified as having Asperger's or autism, studies have shown that the incidence rates increase. So that if there's a familiar trait, whether it's in parent and first child, or child, and then third child, it needs to be studied, and instead of looked at as something that the district resists, something that the district actually sits down and takes a good long study to make sure that the child is being identified if indeed there is autistic-like traits that are manifesting in the siblings.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. A couple of things, a couple of points. When you get towards the end of the document, and these are just formatting things, we start to lose recommendation numbers. Are there recommendations that those are tied to, or were those additional recommendations from the group? As you get towards the end of the document, we no longer have recommendation numbers.
Yeah, well, that's because there was a lot of numbers that were out of place. And so we're going to go back and renumber that, and we're going to try to fix the format. This wizard's going to fix our format.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and they were sometimes supporting information for things that were already there. We're also we're trying to
combining a lot of them.
Okay, that was
trying to put in the date standards and utilizing anything that we can find that is justified through the California Department of Education and IDEA to support anything through the PI that supports the recommendations that we're making.
You're still researching.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because we do have a lot of what he's talking about, but I think it would just set the set of urgency to the board by giving them more information on the value of that.
Okay. Then there's my statement about the recommendations, and then there were some are statements, and we don't have objectives.
Oh, don't
really
worry.
to go with
It's not that you don't have them, they're not typed in there.
Okay, all righty. And then I'm going to believe the same thing with regards to proposed action plans.
Yes.
Okay, and then timelines as well for some things.
Yes, because I did mine all.
And then you're consolidating.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. Mine were all done on just on
everything was
copies.
laid out. It's all
And
kinda-
so
Yeah,
then entered in, and I
when
didn't get a
looked at
chance
it
to enter
today,
everything.
It didn't look like this.
No.
Yeah.
No, because there is a little more form to it than is here, but it's.
We tried to address some of everything so that people would understand that we had goals in every area.
Okay. Questions?
No, comment. I just wanted to let you know that this week, Superintendent Gundry sent a note to all teachers about a new design-based learning. I mean, it's not new, but he is recommending that teachers K-12, all subjects, get involved with the opportunity to get a 20-unit design-based learning certificate or master's degrees. So you might, instead of, it mentions in here universal design. I don't know if it's instead of or in addition to, but the information.
It would be in addition to, I believe. It wouldn't be instead of.
Yeah, and
look,
these are the great things that when these kinds of incentives come in, and we have a couple of things that we had discussed in there just about
there's a lot more.
Making sure that even for this committee that whenever it can be established that something is above and beyond that hourly stipends are made available. I mean, these are we can make the recommendation. We understand that doesn't mean that they're accepted. Or there's a budget that supports it, but we certainly recognize that it that there's a need there, and and whenever something like this comes up, this is great, because this is offering an incentive, you know, to these 45 units, for at least for teaching staff, move them in columns this way. So, you know, this is great stuff. This is the kind of stuff that's going to get people on board with you know, adding, now that there's no special ed in those credentials, adding those extra things onto what they already have.
A lot
in
of our
place.
studies are backed up by using system-wide positive behavior support system. And so we didn't get a lot into that, but it's so integrated in most of the goals, which would be different than an RTI, behavioral RTI. I'm sorry, it's just different. I'll try to research better and see if I can find something that's similar, since it appears that a lot of money's been spent already training people in that.
Or maybe something that can be aligned
Right,
with it to
there was
support
maybe
it, to
something
supplement it.
that, you're right, that we can do to try to fix that.
No, actually, it is based on positive behavior supports,
Okay.
behavior RTI. All that
Okay.
information comes from it.
Somebody said they had
So it's
it,
there.
and I didn't get it.
Kathy. I thought
And one of the
Kathy had a
persons
binder.
is a nationwide person that speaks on it.
Yeah, just let me have a copy of
So
it.
Judy had a question.
No,
Never mind.
I just wanted to say that teachers are being expected to pay for that program that Ruth Ann just talked about. It's not something that the district is giving to them. It is something they are going to have to pay for.
Which program?
I don't know about that. I'm not a teacher and wasn't invited, but that the meeting is April the 26th. So there's probably, to my knowledge, there's been no meeting yet. So there's maybe a lot of misinformation going
My
on.
teacher got the information, and they're going to have to pay a significant amount of money to take advantage of
Okay.
the program.
Thank you.
Herman.
Well, I wanted to thank Warren, Monica, and the Brandenburgs for all the contribution that they did to the collaboration document. And what really jumped out at me, and when those of you that log in, or if you look at the dates on these on the recommendations, you're going to see a lot of 12s, and 2012 and 2013, which I think that's really what we should be doing, is making aggressive recommendations for something, for we're in a crisis.
Mm-hmm.
When our district is in program improvement because of special education, we have board members that will remind us that, well, everybody's falling into program improvement.
He always says that.
And I just want we got to replace that board member, but also we need to remember that it's not what everyone else. I don't look at the failure of everyone else. We look at, we're in Pasadena. We look at what we are able to do. People come into our community, to the non-public agencies and all the experts that are in our community, to get served by the experts in our community. And so for our community to not have access to these experts and to the goodwill in our community is a crime. So I want to see quick implementation. I don't want to see 2015, numbers like 2017. In 5 years, we will promise to commit, to begin, to start, to do. No, none of that. No. Because by then, we're going to fail another 10 years of, and it's all in the wording. The recommendations that Lou Barber did, who's an expert in special education, who did in the report in 1999 to try to make all the schools inclusive in our school district, then got watered down by the task force. And if you read that document, which is the third one in your binders, you'll see the recommendation, I believe it was number 6 or 16, and I'll read it again to the board because I'm going to hammer away at that one, because it says something along the line that we in 5 years will agree, or every school will agree to commit to becoming inclusive. That's like an alcoholic saying, I promise that down the road I will stop to drink, and here, I'm going to empty some. No. We need to do it now. We need to do it now. And we have the leadership in this district that if they don't do it, we're going to be looking at a consent decree, okay, which is going to force you. And if things have to get forced, it's not going to be good for kids. It's not going to be good for anybody. If there's people that don't want to serve the kids in this community, there's other school districts. There's other places to go to. But if you want to work in Pasadena and you want to help the kids in Pasadena, then please stop resisting serving our kids. Stop the resisting. We don't want lawsuits to resolve the serving of our kids. We don't want there to be lawsuits. I finally received it. I'm going to make public the salaries for everybody in this district. I know what everybody makes. I know there's teachers that are making it, with the benefits and everything. They're at six figures, 110, 105,000, 108,000. If I tell you what everybody's making, there's people that will line up and take your job if you do not want to do it. So, I just ask again, let's look at the Ubuntu quote that I read the last time. Let's all work together. Let's not resist this. Let's and I'm asking our leadership, John Gundry and Brian McDonald, and I haven't met the new special ed director. We need to be bold with the implementation, and if there's people that are going to behind closed doors resist what they know needs to be done, well, let's walk. Let's ask the parents to stand in the corner with signs, not to ask for more money for the school district and for the state, for the Molly Munger bill and the George Brown bill, because more money is not going to resolve it if we don't have the right people in place that have the will to want to serve the kids. More money is not going to resolve it. So I thank you all for listening to me and for participating in this hopefully ongoing process that because we should be doing continuous improvement in this district. This should not be just a reactive, group or a group that gets put together because of a lawsuit or because a possible lawsuit or because we're in program improvement. We should be doing this anyways. We should be constantly trying to improve our system to serve the kids.
Before we wrap up, first and foremost, I want to thank everybody for their great work tonight. We made it through all of the subcommittees. Next, on tomorrow, we look forward to hearing from Leonard, and then we can communicate what our dates will be. Yes, yes.
I have all your emails.
Yes, he does.
I already emailed the superintendent's office, so we'll see. I doubt anyone's ever reading. I hope Diane might be. Yeah.
Summary. Who's going to write the executive summary? You are?
Yes.
Is
thank you.
The fact that this is going to be an ongoing thing going to be included? Like, are they going to be notified in the executive summary that this is not the end, this is the beginning?
Well, I know that the wish of the task force is for it to be an ongoing body, and so that's something that I would, if this is what the task force wants in it, then that is what I would include. But I'm going to, the one thing that I would say is it would be challenging, and I want you to hear this and just consider structural and process-wise. It would be challenging to maintain a group this size going forward. So I know that the group wants a body that is ongoing, but I also want the group to consider, would it need to be a group this size? And that's the piece that as a person who facilitates routinely, I think that a group this size moving forward would not be beneficial, as much as ensuring that there is a body that definitely acts as representation and maintains ongoing communication with a body. Because to maintain a task force, there's never been an organization that maintained a task force this size that the work continued to be meaningful, because it really is just too big. It really, really is just too big. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and then of course there would be the need, you also have to consider the benefit of the ad hoc subcommittees is because you really get to get in, do what you need to do, make the recommendations, get out, but still make certain that you're part of a body that is able to hold others accountable. So there is a structural conversation that unfortunately I'm not involved in the decision making. But again, in the executive summary, certainly there's a statement that will indicate that there should be an ongoing body. Yeah. Louise.
Will we be notified when the entire package that's going to the board is ready? I'm assuming, or at least an email that talks about, that itemizes everything that went into the
I am only your voice.
Board package.
I'm not doing, by the way, I'm not the person who's presenting. I'm only your voice. And throughout this entire process, the one thing that I have hoped that you gained from my participation is that with every step, every decision that you made, I came back to you with something to represent that decision so that you could see, we don't have to do this again, we can keep moving forward. So I really am just acting as that person to consolidate for you. Yeah, give you the weekend off.
Thank you.
So with that, I want to say thank you. It has been an absolute pleasure being your facilitator. This will be my last meeting with you. It's been great getting to, Wait,
It's late, we can tell.
I'm going to do my best Scooby-Doo impersonation. My best Scooby-Doo. Exactly.
Tell people are getting tired.
I want to thank you
giddy.
for really trusting me, having faith in me, and allowing me to walk with you through this process. You have just really, really, really demonstrated that this is what commitment looks like. This is absolutely what commitment looks like. And the children of Pasadena will be better served because you were involved. So thank you, and everyone just have a great life. Well, you'll see, you'll get email from me. That you'll get. All righty.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure meeting you.